This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation, welcome back to NWA Crock Roll. We are on episode number 11, and we are in the home stretch to Starrcade, where we're talking about November 85, Part 2. Last episode was great with our guest Rory, who will be joining us again tonight. But really a lot of great stuff on this show tonight. Last time we closed with Hard Times, and this time we have several matches to talk about, a few Ric Flair title defenses, and an all-time absolute great angle for Mid-South. So before we jump into that, we're going to go around the horn and check in with everybody. Dr. G, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing? I mean, this is we're getting into the meat and potatoes right now. So this is some exciting stuff.
It is exciting. The closer we get to Starrcade, the more excited I get, especially the guests that we're supposedly going to have. I won't I'll keep my fingers crossed. I can't get overly excited until that actually happens, but a big one lined up, so I'm getting really excited for that one too. So
Same here. I'm telling you, everybody's gonna stay tuned because we're really getting into some great stuff.
Yeah, we get an interview and we don't have to do no ad-free bullshit to get it. So anyway,
exactly.
All right, so Colum, how are you tonight?
I'm very good, Sean. Thank you. Even better after hearing your an early doors Conrad slander there. It's wonderful.
The who? The early who?
The early Conrad slander from you.
Oh, Conrad. Yes, that guy. Yes.
The fat bugger for down south.
No offense to Conrad, he does a fine show. Just we don't have to sell pills or spend money and do commercials or anything like that. We are here for your entertainment and ours only. So, but it's always great to have you here, Colum. So, look forward to talking about tonight after your incredible rendition of Hard Times last episode. That was welcomed with much endurance. So you did a great job.
Oh, you're welcome, baby. I do it for the fans, Daddy.
Maybe one day I get you to do a Wahoo impression on an upcoming podcast. Can you do that for us?
Absolutely not.
All right. And last but certainly not least, our rotating horseman tonight, and was on our last show, also very critically received. Several people said he added a little bit of class, which he seems to do on every pod he's on. Rory McNamara, how are you tonight?
I'm very well, thank you, Sean. I just try to sprinkle a little bit of class, get it right everywhere I head. So let's see if my touch doesn't desert me for the next 2.5 hours.
Well, let's hope not. I mean, we all deserve a little bit of class here and there. You are on with quite the rowdy bunch, and we are a bunch of rowdy bunch at Place to Be Nation, so it's nice to have a little bit of class within the ranks. So we are always welcome.
It's an important role. It's one I don't take lightly.
You should not. So, again, welcome back. So, with that, before we start, about a day or two after we recorded our last episode, we had an unfortunate death for Butch Reed, and the timing was really bad, obviously, because we obviously talked about a Butch Reed angle, and actually he's part of tonight as well, discussion. So I just kind of wanted to go around the horn and get everybody's thoughts on Butch Reed, your thoughts as him as a wrestler, as an individual, memories of him. I mean, I'll start with me. Honestly, guys, I had never watched any of this mid-'80s Butch Reed ever. My first Butch Reed interactions was when he joined the WWE as the natural Butch Reed with the blonde hair. I had no idea what his career was pre-WWE, so that was new to me. And then, of course, when he got into WCW and Doom, which is one of my all-time favorite tag teams, I actually got to see him live in person when they took on the Steiners at Capital Combat. So, and I also got to see him take on the Rock and Roll Express at Bash 90 as well. So, a lot of fond memories from the late 80s into the 90s with Butch Reed. His team was awesome with Doom. He had a fairly good run. Everyone we know about the infamous supposed Intercontinental run that he was supposed to have against my favorite wrestler, Rick Steamboat. But yeah, very solid wrestler. And as we watch this Mid-South stuff, pretty incredible legacy. So with that, I'll go over to Dr. G first. Thoughts on Butch Reed?
Well, I with Butch Reed, I remember him from the Mid-South days. Obviously, everybody knows the WWE run, but I just remember him, the Battle of the Hacksaws with Hacksaw Jim Duggan. And when he came over to the WWE, I thought that was a great addition. I figured he would be, a good Intercontinental Champion, which we spoke about, that he had, had the possibility of being Intercontinental Champion and, missed some bookings or, wanted to take time off or whatever it is. But, I don't want, no sense in getting into all that right now. But I just remember him as being, one of those tough guys that actually could go. I mean, I thought he had a good match with Ric Flair. I think I thought he was pretty decent in the ring, and I do remember him from his Doom days. Probably wasn't long enough or long as it should have been, but I thought he and Ron Simmons were a great team. And it was kind of sad. It was kind of shocking because we literally, I think it was like either a day or two before when we recorded, and I couldn't believe that. Oh my gosh, we were just talking about this guy, and it was random because we wouldn't have probably expected Butch Reed to be part of this podcast because he was in Mid-South, but it's it was another sad day for wrestling. There's a lot of guys up there that from our childhood that are no longer around, and he's one of them, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's been sad. I mean, obviously we've had to talk about Luke Harper on here. We've had to talk about Road Warrior Animal, and it just just seems to be a terrible trend going on. Colin, your thoughts on Butch Reed?
Well, I was the same as you, Sean. I only initially knew him from his WWF run, and then the run they had with Doom. I've really enjoyed it because when we started first getting the classic WCW, I really, really enjoyed Doom. Their stuff straight up my alley. But these last couple of months, watching the stuff from Mid-South, has really opened. And I'm watching it again today for the stuff we're going to be talking about tonight. Really opened my eyes to these guys who might have been nothing in not nothing in the WWF, but just reduced to being mid-carders and then top of the card when they went to specific places. In the mid to late 80s, these guys were major stars out with there before they actually got there. And I'm seeing that Butch Reed was a massive star in the Mid-South, and he was actually really, really good in the ring, a lot better than I'd remembered or ever given him credit for. And it's just one of these things, like you hadn't heard from him in a while, and then you heard that he'd had his health issues, and then obviously just after we recorded the last time, you hear the news that he'd passed away. It's another, as G said, it's another tragic story from a guy. I mean, he wasn't even an old man in relative terms today. So it was again just really, really sad to hear.
Yeah, definitely sad. And the one thing I will say is I literally yesterday I started doing a Mid-South watch from the start, and the main reason I did that is because of stuff we've been watching on this show, and Butch Reed's been a big part of that. So yeah, definitely a big influence on the industry over the years. And Rory, last but not least, your thoughts on Butch Reed?
Yeah, when somebody passed away in their mid-60s, it just gets you. It really does. It's no age whatsoever. It really, especially when it's somebody you haven't heard about for a while, and you always, when somebody who you've known and you've spent a lot of time watching it, even somebody like me who wasn't watching at the time, and my real experience of Butch Reed came many years after he'd retired. Just the match like Halloween Havoc 90, for example, I've seen that Doom tag team match many times. It made my GWCW list. I think it's fantastic, and
as it should.
You watch it,
yes.
You watch it over and over. Quite right. Watch it over and over, and you almost feel, it's a ridiculous thing to say, you feel like these people are with you. They're almost part of your routine, especially pro wrestlers, because it's something we do, something very insular, something we don't really share with many other people other than media like this, which is fantastic. So when somebody from that circle does pass away, especially when you haven't heard them mentioned in any way, shape or form for a long time. It certainly, from my perspective, it strikes a chord, and a very minor one, I'm afraid. Obviously, not anything remotely close to what his family must be going through, especially the comments they've made about this. And it looks as though, sadly, his death was related to this wretched disease that is still very much with us at this time. It's all just desperately sad. But podcasts like this, and obviously things like the WWE Network as well, mean that his very best work will live on forever, and that's definitely more than a shred of comfort for us all. But very, very sad news indeed.
Absolutely. So I will definitely. I look forward to actually hoping seeing more of Butch Reed as I go through Mid South and watch that back on my rewatch. But rest in peace, Butch Reed. Very good legacy in the industry, and like we said, unfortunately another great that's passed. So all right. So with that, let's kind of get out of that funk a little bit, and let's talk second half of November 85 Crockett. So we're going to jump right into it. Our world heavyweight champion, we'll go run down the list, is still Nature Boy Ric Flair. U.S. champion, still Magnum TA. The tag and six-man tag team champions are the Koloffs. The national tag champions are the Andersons. The Mid-Atlantic title is vacant. Like we discussed on the last episode, we will see Sam Houston face Crusher Khrushchev for that title at Starrcade 85. Our national champion, unfortunately, is still Terry Taylor after that last promo we talked about on the last episode. And the TV title is vacant, contrary to what Arn Anderson wants everybody to leave. So that's kind of where we stand right now. We finished last episode, like we said, with hard times. And now we're going to jump into the second half of November 1685. So we're still on World Champion. We're going to go to World Championship Wrestling. And we're going to open up with a promo from Jim Cornette. So Cornette comes out and tells the crowd to shut up. Says Valiant has lost what little sense he has, taken on a partner against a female partner as the most violent team in wrestling, in a street fight match nonetheless. You've gone crazy, and he says Atlanta Lively and Big Mama are saying they're going to rip clothes off of the Midnight Express, making them naked. But that's what we're going to do to you. We're going to take that big, ugly Sal partner, rip her clothes off, and find out what she looks like with all the makeup and crummy clothes, and rip Big Mama's clothes off and expose her shortcomings, which I thought was a nice little dig at what the irony of that comment really is. That made me laugh. And then they will be so ashamed they will do what women do: turn tail and leave the ring, and we will beat your brains out. You stinking punk, I hate your guts, he says. Besides that, you're an idiot for taking a woman as a partner, because Midnight Express could beat any woman. You got something up your sleeve, but by Turkey Day, I'll find out what it is. So really quick, kind of to the point, Jim Cornette promo here to open. Dr. G, what did you think?
It's classic Cornette, really. When you think about and the things that he says. I mean, obviously today, I don't know, probably wouldn't go over too well.
Yeah, the women's stuff definitely uncomfortable a little bit, right?
Again, different times, so he probably didn't hit you as much back then as it would now. But but the thing is just, it's amazing when he is speaking, he doesn't miss a beat. It's like he knows what he wants to say, and he just says it, and it just comes out, and he is such a good heel. I mean, he makes you want to just beat the hell out of him, and he's doing his job. I mean, and you, as the fans, are going to pay to watch the face team beat his team, and that's what you want, and that's what he does. And again, you try to take in context, we're watching things 35 years later, so you have to take in context. I mean, but he does make you chuckle when you listen to him, because he just rattles it off, and it's just like, I'm like, oh my God, what is this guy? How much coffee does this guy drink in the morning? I mean, he's raring and ready to go, and he's always on target. And he gets you to the point where you're like, oh my gosh, I don't care what team's facing his team. I want to see them beat the heck out of him and his team. So good, like I said, just he's one of the best promo guys of I mean, he's definitely top 10 promo guy, of all time. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he's right up there with I still think Bobby Heenan's the best manager of all time, but he's definitely in the top 2 or 3, no doubt about it.
I would agree. And, and as much as I love Jim Cornette, I still struggle a little bit with the whole Ron Garvin scenario here because Ron Garvin's one of my hidden Jim favorites. So I'm still struggling with this whole Atlanta Lively thing. I guess we'll see how that plays out for me at Starrcade 85, but I'm just kind of waiting for that December to come up because I know there's some great Garvin shit in that, and I'm just going to have to get to Atlanta Lively first. So
yeah, he's pretty funny though how he gets his, like the way he's doing it because we know who Miss Atlanta Lively is, so you just the way he's going on and on about it, and we could beat any woman and all that. I just good stuff. I mean, I really enjoy watching this because again, even though you know what's going to happen, and we're watching this 35 years later, you get sucked in, and you get sucked in by his promo. Yep. Again, you really want to beat the heck out of this guy. He's just a little snot nose that you just want to stuff in a locker somewhere, And he
made a pretty good living out of that, didn't he?
He did
long term.
He sure did.
All right, Colin, your thoughts on this promo from Jim Cornette?
To start with, I was really enjoying it, and I did really enjoy it all the way through because it is typical Cornette stuff, and that's not it's not always a bad thing. When obviously taking into consideration some of the things he says, if you take that out of the equation, then more often than not you're going to get a great couple of minutes from Cornette. I even started writing less offensive than usual for Cornette, and then it was like, oh no, there it's there. He said the Midnight Express can beat any woman's brains out. I'm like, okay then, that's our one for the night from Cornette there. But I'm the same as Dr. G. I don't understand where he can get all this energy from. He's just like, it's pent up through the day, and he just lets it rip as soon as he gets in the front of the microphone, and he very rarely fluffs up. So yeah, it was good stuff. I think it was building nicely to what's coming at Starrcade with Jimmy Valiant and Miss Atlanta Lively. I don't know why you keep bringing Ronnie Garvin into this because he's nowhere to be seen.
I don't know.
He's nowhere to be seen, Sean. I think that's just you wishful thinking. It's obviously a well haggard Montreal via Atlanta woman. He's got his partner.
I'll go back to kayfabe and quit breathing at this point. So. All right.
It might make you feel better.
It might make me feel better if I just ignore. Yeah, you're right. So you're right. I'll do that. Rory, your thoughts on the Cornette promo?
Yeah, I think the guys have summed it up very nicely indeed. He could cut a promo like this in his sleep. He very probably did the night before and managed to memorize it all. As they've said about Cornette promos, same 1985, same 10 years on. He's just on all the time, Cornette, isn't he? And his sheer love for the fact that, and in his head, it is a fact that pro wrestling should still be like this. When you see some of the references that come up in these promos, as we discussed last time, we're glad that those have been left by the wayside. But for somebody with clear, just radiating just pure love for what pro wrestling can be, it's a delight to see Jim Cornette in action. I just want to say to him, Jim Cornette, never change. Oh, you haven't, have you?
No, he hasn't, unfortunately. He's still 1980s Cornette in 2021. So, all right, very good. So we look forward to that match coming up at Starrcade 85. Of course, it'll be Midnight Express against Atlanta Lively, not Ron Garvin, and Jimmy Valiant in a street fight. So that'll be one of our main events coming up in March that we talk about. So we're going to transition over to a couple of Flair and Dusty Rhodes promos. So I'll go through the promos, and then we'll talk about. I'll stop probably after the second promo to get thoughts before we move on. So Tony says the match is signed, and then I'm looking. The Flair's robe is great tonight. He's got the feathered robe, which is one of my favorites. Flair says to stand here and listen to you and your cheerleader commentator friend. And then he looks at Dave Crockett and tells him to come over here. where he's needed, because he needs 2 full-time commentators, because I'm not the other Tom, Dick, and Henrys that walk out here, because I have this, and he puts up his world title, obviously. He says this costs more than the car you are driving, the world title belt. He goes, I'm Ric Flair. And the past couple weeks I haven't been here, and we're going to talk about some of the reasons why. And he goes, this program's rating has gone down. He says, Ted Turner, don't worry. And when you want me to bring the program up, I'm here to do it. They tell me Dusty Rhodes is playing himself totally recovered and ready to take the world title. And then they show video of the cage match. And Flair says, glad people can see firsthand why Anderson's and I are the 3 greatest wrestlers alive today, whether people like it or not. I'm the man that put Rhodes in a knee-high cast, sent him home wondering if he would ever wrestle again. A lot of you fat, pot-belly guys sitting in your chairs right now don't like me because I represent what a real man is. Tell your old lady next to you not to watch because you don't like what's happening at this time. He goes, I'm a winner, not a loser. You get in the ring. Ring with me. You pay the price. Starrcade, Dusty, cut and dry. You think you are man enough to jump on this? Then Whisper and Jim Crockett and David Crockett's here. He goes, I'm not done. Don't wrap me up. I love it when he does this, and he gets mad at the cameraman because they're obviously wrapping him up from his cue. He calls out the Road Warriors. They come from the reject AWA, which made me laugh. They're back in the major leagues, and you side with Dusty. If I catch you anywhere, basically he says that the AWA Dusty Rhodes is not what's happening in pro wrestling. So, and then he goes, woo! So really funny, great promo from Flair. We'll talk about that in a minute, but I want to go to the Dusty's response there. Rhodes is out with his jean jacket on, and his hair is really something this week, really unkempt. And he says when he laid up, he thought about Ric Flair every night, every minute. He watched tapes, everything he did. Why am I doing this? I got your number and your color, which is yellow. You got a yellow streak that runs down your back. I will and he said, I was in the ring laid out like a cripple when you stole my belt, Arn Anderson. So he jumped from Flair to Anderson. Now you're running around saying you got something that belongs to me. Your time is coming. Ric Flair, Starrcade 85, I want you to pretend I ain't going to be there. Pretend Dream ain't going to kick your booty. Pretend I ain't going to take all the money that night, Jack. Most of all, pretend this. I will break your leg live and in color and then send you home to your mama and let you live for 6 months because I know you ain't got enough money to last you 2 weeks. So, again, nice little insider dig on Flair's spending habits. And he says, at Starrcade 85, Flair, gather all you got because gut check you got is that yellow streak running down your back. And he said, and that's it. So that finishes the Dusty Rhodes promo. So a lot of good innuendo there. I like I liked Ric Flair taking a jab at the AWA. I like Dusty taking a jab at Flair and his spending habits. So we will start with Colin first. What did you think of these 2 promos?
Well, I'm going to let you into the secret here, guys, and I don't know if you've picked up on this at all. So consider this spoilers. Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes are really, really good at what they do.
Yes.
I've got a note that I honestly I don't really have many notes about what they said because I was just taken in by watching it. I did notice that David Crockett had gone full David Crockett when he's looking at Ric Flair and just when he's doing his promo, and I was the same. I'm not going to lie. The Dusty stuff is night and day compared to the sort of the quasi heel promos that he was cutting over the summer that we were not huge fans of. This is back to the Dusty that certainly I knew. And again, Tony's reaction is just like the rest of us. He looks like he's having the time of his life because he's getting the best seat in the house watching Dusty do his thing. I thought there were two excellent promos for the world title feud. And we were talking. I was listening back to the last show we did, and we were talking about how Magnum and Tully is maybe, well, in our eyes is the number one feud at the time, but Flair and Dusty they're pulling their fair share of the weight as well in the run up to the big show. So no, excellent stuff from the two of them again.
All right, excellent. Rory, what'd you think?
Yeah, I said last time that my personal favourite Ric Flair promos are the ones where he slows it down and stares into the camera, and you know when he's doing that, he is taking it seriously. And as such, we as a viewer take it even more seriously as well. But for those softly spoken for Ric Flair promos to really make sense, you have to have his bread and butter promos 90% of the time as well. And that's what we got here. We got Ranting Rick, and it was one of the very best ones. I must say, I missed the AWA reference when he was going on there, Sean. So I'm glad you brought that one up. Just hearing it now gave it a little bit of a titter there. Flair, again, he can take in so many points. He can take in Dusty, take in the Road Warriors, and go there. He can hit them all with nary even breaking sweat. He might have been sweating a bit by the end of the 5-minute promo, but I think we're going to grant him that one. And Dusty, how do you follow up the greatest promo of all time? You just cut a bog standard one, which is better than anybody else could, 99.999% of anybody else could do on their very, very best day. I think Callum's right. And just to back him up on here in case he thinks he's out on his own with such an opinion, Callum, I think it could just be me and you against the world here, but let's see what we can do. These two are very good.
They both, these guys are very good. So very popular opinion, I think, guys. Dr. G, what did you think about the Flair and Dusty promo?
There's not much I could say much more than with Callum and Rory and yourself said. That I mean, this is, and I do love, by the way, I did catch on to that AWA reference, and I thought that was great. Flair loves to throw his little digs here and there. I love it. It's awesome. But this is vintage Dusty and Ric Flair promos right here. This is Dusty is back to the Dusty we know. You're right. He was a little off for him. I mean, listen, still his promos were good, but for him, it wasn't what we were totally expecting. He is on. I mean, now that's it. The hard times came, and boom, it's just. And even like Rory was saying, even when he's, just it's more of a standard promo, it's still better than 99.9% of what's out there from anyone else. He is just so on, and this is the Dusty that I grew up loving, and that's why he was my favorite wrestler at that time. And Ric Flair, what could you say about Ric Flair? I mean, come on. I very rarely misses a beat. The only time I'd say I really didn't enjoy some of his promos is when he did some of the Mid-South stuff. I know when we were watching some of that stuff, I would watch some of the rest of the show, and I would see, and he just never seemed 100% comfortable there. But when he's in Crockett, there's nobody better. He and Dusty are, 1 and 1A. There's nothing much more to say about those guys.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you guys on the Dusty thing. Like, Dusty's had some rough promos. Like, when we started this podcast, he was doing the whole gorilla thing. God, that seems so long ago, right? But he was doing the gorilla thing, the cage thing. Then he's had some uncomfortable promos. He's had some promos where he felt like he was drunk. He wasn't all there. He's just babbling. And I feel like he's really starting to hit the home runs, to your point about the Dusty Rhodes that we know and love. And I feel like that's finally what we're starting to see after wondering, man, was he always like this where he just rambled a lot and then had the occasional good promo? This is like the Dusty we've been waiting for, and I feel like he's bringing the goods now. And Flair always brings the goods. You're right, though. When he's in other territories like Mid-South and whatever, it's almost like he's playing a certain role because he knows he's going to be gone the next day, right? So
exactly.
Yeah, that probably adds a little bit of a different element. All right, so we're going to jump into 2 more promos before we get to the match we're going to talk about on this episode tonight. So promo 3. Then I want to call it promo 3 because it's a continuation of the last 2. Are the Andersons and the Flairs. Ole says everyone talks about how bad the Andersons are, and Dusty Rhodes, I know you want that world title and that TV title. You and the Road Warriors got something cooking, or they wouldn't be here. So I guess now it's kind of official. This is how I feel like they took the dig at the AWA. Now the Andersons are calling out the Road Warriors. It's kind of official. They're here full time. I guess that's the way I would look at it. Or they wouldn't be here. Flair is right. There's no place for people like you or the Road Warriors or anyone else. We are the ones that are going to run this joint. If you like it or don't like it, if you don't like it, then take issue with us. Don't stand here in that 50-cent jacket talking like a hayseed. Ole's Anderson. Ole's so great. He goes, the time is here where I slap you when you get in the ring, and the belts all go on us because we are the best. Arn says, how much cross-pollination do you think it took to get a family like this all together? Dusty, don't be like these people here and stand across the parking lot and say you got something that belongs to me. Step up, be a man, and just take it. Flair jumps in and goes, when you stand in a showroom of Mercedes and Rolls Royces, if you're a man or a wrestler, you look at the best of them all, the Andersons and Flair. A lot of guys walking around the sport tell everyone what they're going to do. You're looking at three guys that have proof of what the pudding is. We're the best. Dusty Rhodes, you call me yellow, I'll mop the floor with you. And then he does another woo. The next promo, which actually takes place after the match we're going to watch, Flair's out again. And this is Ric Flair's third costume change, by the way. Earlier, he came out first in a robe, then he came out in a T-shirt, and now he's in a suit. So literally 3 costume changes for Flair tonight. So got to give the man some props. He goes, great as I am, talks about the phone booths to change, and he looks great in styles and profiles. This is the world champion. 1 minute, he goes, one moment, the greatest athlete alive. The next, a refined business executive. When world champion, you will always hang out with the elite people. He says, looks at Tully Blanchard, the U.S. champion, my own family, the national tag team champions. And the new TV champion, obviously, is Arn Anderson. You got to know, Tony, you are standing here in some hot cotton, tall cotton. Tony says, some of the best. Ole says, not some of the best. We are the best. Everyone looks at us and tries to figure out a game plan, how they want to be the rest of their life. We are the people they look at. They talk about picks they have up in the locker room, not everyone else in the world, because they are the best and they have the belts to prove it. We've always done a lot of talking and bragging, but like we say, it's hard to be modest. When you are so great, we are great. And then Flair starts breaking out into, Lord, it's so hard to be humble, which I think is the first time he's done this, but he's done it in a lot of promos. Flair says, you are looking at real attractions right here. He goes, girls in Columbus, I know you know what a find Ole Anderson, as he puts over Ole Anderson with the women. That made me laugh too. You can't, and he will be terrorizing the great state of Georgia as well. Flair says, "Oh, look at this," and Rhodes and TA are in the ring. They say, "Oh, look at this." The Flair and crew, they come out and then they go to the ring, and there's a really great visual where all 4 horsemen are standing outside the ring, and TA and Dusty are looking down over them, and then the Road Warriors run out, and the crowd goes absolutely bonkers, and Ole starts losing it about Dusty's boot and the Road Warriors. So I love the closing visual here, where it's kind of like the first kind of where you see the 4 horsemen against 4 people that are going to stand up to him. So I absolutely love this. So with that, I believe, Rory, you went first to talk about these 2 promos.
Yeah, that visual was sensational. That's definitely something to grab from the network and use as your phone wallpaper, if people still do that in 2021, the caveman that I am. Yeah, just amazing. All the images, that one really stuck with me. It was beautifully shot, beautifully set up. And that's where pro wrestling booking is at its finest, when it doesn't need to beat you over the head with someone. You could just walk into the room at that point, and you could look at that camera shot, and you could look at those 4 people there, you could look at those 4 people there, and you could say, yep, that group of 4 people hate that group of 4 people, and they hate them back, and they want to beat each other up. And that is booking 101, and it's so simple. It can be as complex as you want it to be as well. And that's why I love so much of this stuff. Speaking of love, I want to give a little bit to Ole, and he's not the easiest man in the world to give love to. I do wonder, a couple of days after this promo, when they did go down to Georgia, how much love that Flair said he would be able to
Columbus. Ole's got some women.
Actually happened. No. As we record this, there are a lot of stories of things that may or may not have happened in the mid-1980s that we're just hearing about again now, whether Ole Anderson's involved or not. The person being mentioned is quite enough. I don't think Ole would that's really taking it to new extremes, but his promo here was tremendous. I'm going to give him love by saying how much hate he manages to exude. I said last time that look that can curdle milk at 50 paces, that is his default setting, I think. That is, he wakes up with that, he goes to bed with it. The remaining 12 hours he's awake, and I still think it's the case to this very day. But it makes for a compelling pro wrestling character. You just don't want to be anywhere near this guy. He's just so solemn and dour that you really don't want to mess with him. He has to be this way for a reason, right? And the fact that he probably could kick my ass. The fact he looks like my drunk uncle on his worst day. And yes,
That's funny you said that. I think I've made that comment about him before. That's awesome.
It's absolutely listen closely, and it's a very apt one from where I'm sat right now as well. I'm sure my family members aren't listening to this, though. Because of that, you're gonna want to give this fella a wide berth. So yeah, props to Ole in this one, but again, what a final shot.
Yeah, a great visual. And, Ole Anderson, I guess the way I would sum it up with Ole is, if I were a kid, I would not want to lose my Frisbee in his backyard. That's how I think about Ole Anderson. So, all right, Dr. G, your thoughts on these two promos?
Well, I mean, yeah, I agree with you about Ole. Ole, like I said, I guess I didn't give him as much props when I was younger, probably because he did probably scare me as a kid, the way he acted. But, he really did do a good promo. I mean, again, because we know so much about these guys, off air or, in real life, more than we did at the time. So sometimes it kind of fogs up your thoughts of what you feel about what they're doing. I'm trying to just put that away now and just watch this with an open mind and realize, wow, he was really good. And I could see, because I never understood why was Ole Anderson, well, I guess because he owned the company, he owned Georgia Championship Wrestling. Maybe he made himself. What was the thing about Ole that, that kind of made him, a top guy in the territory that he was in? But now I'm starting to see why, because he's actually pretty talented. And he actually, if he really was a nice enough guy and he took some people under his wing, maybe he did take, I think Arn does not have too many bad things to say about him. You could really learn a lot from him. So, and, I was going back to Ric Flair when you're saying his wardrobe changes was probably because he came in with his robe on with nothing underneath it, probably from the night before or the morning before or an hour before.
Well, I certainly hope so. That makes it even better.
So he probably, so he got to that point. He got there. All right, and then I'll go change, get a T-shirt, and then he just did his progression for the day of what he normally would, but he just did it on air. The face off with the 4-on-4, freaking awesome. I mean, that's just total perfect theater right there. That's like, good versus evil. We almost like two gangs going at it, staring each other down. Love it. That's just a great visual right there. And I agree with Rory. That's actually a great, either screensaver or, picture on your desktop. It's perfect. I love it.
And think about the legacy it leads to, the first War Games. I mean, there's such legacy in that picture. It's, still years away.
It's just amazing. They book these things and it's simple booking. It's nothing. You don't have to overthink it. And that's what's so great about it is that they realize, and you got the perfect, what's the best part of it is that people were coming around so much on the Road Warriors that this kind of also cemented their, even though they kept saying, we don't really have any friends, that whole deal, that they were always saying. But just to see them standing together with, with Dusty and Mag, like it made them feel like, wow, this is, even though we say we don't have friends, we hate those guys more, so we're going to join the faces. And people wanted to cheer the Road Warriors. That was the thing. So they did it perfectly in the way they kind of just like slid them right in there, kind of casually, right into the whole picture.
Well, I think it's kind of cool that we've talked about the Road Warriors several times on this podcast, but here we are in November. It's kind of the official. They're with Crockett now. They're gone from the AWA. This is kind of like, we're here as one of your main characters, and they put them in this main event angle right out of the gate. So, because clearly they're not dropping the AWA. They dropped the AWA belts at this point. And again, I love Flair taking that dig at the AWA because it kind of cements the Road Warriors are here with the big dogs. So I really did like that. All right, Colin, wrap us up. What did you think of these two promos? Column.
Oh, I bloody muted myself again, didn't I?
You sure did.
I was saying another excellent couple of promos for these guys. I mean, anyone who's listened from the very start, first of all, thank you. Second of all, will know that I gush on a monthly and now bi-monthly basis about how good the Andersons are and Ric Flair and everybody in this segment is. So this month isn't going to be any different. They talk about Ole being people don't realize, or we've not realised how talented he was. It reminds me of he seems like a type of guy who, I think I've said this to you, Sean, and you, Dr. G, before. He's the type of guy that I think I think he's so miserable because he expects everyone to be as good as him. And not everyone is going to be as good as Ole. So he has got no time for people who aren't to his level, which might be why he's a bit of a miserable bastard. I like him, Rory. You'll get this to Roy Keane. He's never the best coach because
Yes.
he's never the best coach because he cannot take guys who can't come up to his level. But my God, the eight guys involved in this can come up to his level, or the 7 other guys can come up to his level, because that shot at the end when the eight of them faced off against each other, just sign me up for that 8-man tag right here, right now, because I've put a note. I'm going full David Crockett thinking about it. It's just as you say, that's a picture to tell 1,000 words. But also get chills the first time that when Ric Flair brought on the Andersons and Tully. Because correct me if I'm wrong, is that the first time that we've seen the 4 of them in the same shot? I think that's the first time.
I actually think you're right. I think that might be the first time we've seen the 4 of them as a collective group. Yes.
So I don't know if it was because where I sit and do my notes is right next to the dining room window. I don't know if I get chills from the draft coming through that, but it would be. It's not a coincidence that I get chills as soon as I see that picture of the 4 of them coming together for the first time. Just excellent stuff again.
It's crazy. So you could just add this to the list of iconic that we've had in these 2 episodes that we've done in November. You have the 4 Horsemen mentioned. You have the Hard Times. You have this. I mean, there's so many iconic moments just in like the month span going to Starrcade that if you're a wrestling historian, you can just go back and watch the month of November, and you're going to learn a whole hell of a lot about Crockett wrestling just watching this 1 month. It's pretty impressive.
And the thing about everything is that we, like, Hard Times was just, there was no big build up to Hard Times. It was just Dusty Rhodes is going to have a promo, and off the cuff he comes up with this legendary thing that people talk about 35 years later. The 4 Horsemen coming onto the screen for the first time wasn't built up to be anything big. It's just happening naturally as part of their story, and it's so organic, and it's so good.
Yep. So with that, we're going to end our watch of World Championship Wrestling with I think it's a treat, and one I didn't expect to see. When I turned on this episode, I'm like, oh, shit. So we have a 6-man tag with Flair and the Andersons taking on the aforementioned favorite wrestler of Sean, Ron Garvin, who is not Atlanta Lively, the aforementioned Boring Terry Taylor, and Pez Whatley, who, Pez Whatley becomes kind of more of a Crockett staple in like 86. But I would liken him to a Sam Houston, who he's a solid hand in the ring. So we'll see a lot more of Whatley as we go, but I think it's a pretty solid 6-man, and this is pretty exciting to see. You got your national champion, your world champion, and your national tag team champions against Garvin, Taylor, and Whatley. So I like, we'll start off. Arn is totally talking shit about all this in one family, so he's continuing from his promo. And it's weird because Paul Jones is out there, and they give their belts, and he gives a TV title to Paul Jones to take back to the dressing room, which I thought was pretty random, Paul Jones being out there. Ole and Arn tag in and out, tangling with Whatley. There's a funny spot where Whatley and Arn, they mat wrestle, and Whatley goes to the ropes, causing Arn to fall out of the ring, and the crowd went absolutely bananas for this. Watley sends Arn. They get back in the ring. Watley sends Arn back out of the ring with 2 drop kicks, and Pez dances. There's an exchange with Flair and Garvin where we get some of the historic punches and chops that we're used to between the two of them. They're just stiffing the shit out of each other, and it ends up with a super high backdrop on Flair by Garvin. Heels get the advantage on Pez after Flair throws him into an Anderson knee. Then they throw him outside, but then he gets tagged to Taylor, and then we get a 6-man war, and we get more of Garvin and Flair beating the shit out of each other, which is absolutely amazing. Garvin gives a nice headbutt. These two are just magical together, and again, we'll see more of them, but this is kind of the first kind of peak that we've seen of them in the ring together of things to come, and they're just magic, I think. Later on, Flair gets thrown by Garvin off the top rope, and he tags Taylor, and then he goes to town on all 3 heels. David Crockett strokes out with multiple look at him. So it's like the baby doll. She likes it, except this time it's the multiple look at hims. Taylor misses a drop kick, and then the heels work him over, and there's a great exchange in this with Taylor and Flair, which, Taylor might be a shit promo, but he showed some good stuff in this ring. The Andersons look great as well, working Taylor over and just quick tags. Flair misses a knee drop, and Taylor gets a figure 4, but it's broken up by Ole. Taylor finally tags Pez, who goes crazy on all 3 heels. All 6 men end up in the ring. Flair from the outside trips Pez. Arn hits an elbow, and Arn covers. And then we get the cover while they're holding Pez's legs down for outside for the 3 count. This was a fantastic 6-man, great face versus heel battle. David Crockett completely freaks out on Flair for the cheat win, but I gave this match 3.25 stars. I probably could have gone higher, but I definitely needed some 6-man Flair and Andersons versus Garvin, Watley, and Taylor. So with that, I will go to Dr. G first with your thoughts on this match.
Well, I think I didn't go as high as you did.
You're crazy.
But I definitely went 3 stars on it, but I enjoyed it. I love anytime you can watch Flair and the Andersons work together. Why not? And I agree. Pez Watley, I kind of liken him a little bit to like the SD Jones of NWA kind of thing. Just a really good hand in the ring, and I know he did have a little bit of a run, some maybe 86 or 87.
86, 86 is probably his big run.
Yeah, when he has like the mid-card run. And, Terry Taylor's Terry Taylor. The guy does nothing for me. I don't, whatever.
He's not bad in the ring, but he is.
No, he's not bad.
Yeah.
But of course, Ron Garvin, I respect Ron Garvin a lot. So just good stuff. I mean, I just, David, it's funny. He gets criticized so much, but he does add to the match. He kind of adds to that, like,
time.
Yeah, he just gets so worked up, but then he gets you kind of worked up as you're watching it because he's so into it. Rather than, you watch some other territories sometimes, even some of the great announcers. Sometimes it's like, oh my God, they're just kind of strumming along, lulling along. He at least. He may not be the greatest announcer, but he at least adds some energy to it. And, Tony's kind of like, believe it or not, is because as good of a personality as he, he's a pretty funny guy. When you hear him, especially like on his podcast, he is pretty funny guy, but he's the straight guy. So he kind of keeps it all in perspective, keeps everything flowing, the traffic cop. But David Crockett just goes off and, that's why sometimes it's so hard to get the Crockett stroke out moment because he does it, at least in our watches, at least 2 or 3 times. But no, I enjoyed the match. 3 stars. I think it was just a really good, solid, good TV match where you have a main event. We always loved those when we were younger because we always saw a lot of the squash matches. So it was fun to see a main event. And I enjoyed it, and I love watching Flair and the Andersons. So you know how I feel about that. So
yeah,
good stuff.
This is such a hard stroke out because obviously you can't go against it. She likes it, but the look at hims in this one had me dying laughing.
When I was watching it, I'm like, Ooh, wow! I didn't realize we were going to get such another great stroke out moment here. This
It
is
was a
going to be
hidden
tough, but
gem of a stroke is what it was. So,
exactly. But good stuff.
yep. Colin, your thoughts on this match?
I enjoyed it as well. Did I miss something as to why Garvin was back? Because I thought, like, the last we saw him, he lost a loser leaves town.
Well, he has been back, but he hasn't really been shown on TV too much. He came back in the summer. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
We haven't seen him since. Kayfabe.
Right. Okay. Because I've just got here Flair versus Garvin early doors, and Sean is a happy man.
Yes.
The best part of the match is obviously when Flair and Garvin are because as you testify to, Sean, they do have excellent chemistry and they are excellent in the ring together. But I did think that Terry Taylor's parts, as much as I have not been a massive fan, and I've been quite vociferous in my hatred for Terry Taylor so far, he is good in the ring, and the parts where he was in were really good as well. So I did enjoy the match. I rated it 3 stars, the same as G, but it doesn't take away from the fact. I think I enjoyed it more than I thought it was a good match, if that makes sense. So obviously I've not rated it as high as yourself, Sean, but that's probably because Garvin's in it.
There's a good chance I overrated it too because of the initial Flair Garvin, and that's kind of like the little appetizer for what we're going to get in December, and I probably might have stroked out a little bit myself for that. So it could possibly be very.
I think I enjoyed it, but as I say, I think I enjoyed it more than I thought it was a good match, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
No, it does.
It was one of these things that myself and Rory and Ben talked about on our GWW countdown, where it was like a 2 3/4 3-star match, but like a 4.5 star package sort of thing. So I really enjoyed it.
Okay. And Rory, what did you think of this match?
Sean liked it. He liked it.
Yeah.
He liked it. Whoa. So did I as well, Sean. Just as much as you, I also awarded it 3 1/4 stars. So never mind about those 2 killjoys.
Good man.
We're going to quibble over 1/4 of a star like all good internet wrestling fans. No, this was so much fun. Everybody got a chance to shine, even Terry Taylor. But I was also struck, and I choose that word advisedly, by the quality of the Flair Garvin exchanges here. They, in every literal and metaphorical sense, just lit it up when they were in the ring. They completely went for it. No quarter asked or given. And it really just made me want to jump ahead a couple of years and fire up Starrcade 87. Another match that made my GWCW list, by the way. And again, as I'm sure Sean is about to say, so it should have done. I think I ranked it in my top 40, actually. Yeah,
it should have been.
There we go. Just thinking about that match now, this 6-man tag, without making recourse to my notes, I don't remember a massive amount about it other than that I enjoyed it. But if you've got just those 2 or 3 minutes of Flair and Garvin knocking 14 bells out of each other, you can't ask for much more than that on your weekly television show. So, yeah, this is one to definitely check out if it had passed you by, which had me beforehand. But even if you just watch the Flair and Garvin stuff, you're in for a treat. It's the stuff that nowadays, 5 years ago, I probably wouldn't have given this much of a second thought, but my own personal journey, as you have to talk about, I could just watch those smack each other up all bloody day.
Yeah, well, make sure you when you make sure you listen to December's episode, because there's a Flair Garvin treat in the last World Championship Wrestling in December. So we'll just leave it at that. Yep. All right. So that closes out World Championship Wrestling. But before we go to break, just like we did last week, we're going to head over to Mid-South, because this wasn't the only Ric Flair match that we're going to get tonight we just talked about. We actually have 3 more Ric Flair matches. So earlier on, he referenced that he hasn't been around, and now we're going to start getting into why. So we're going to head to Mid-South, same weekend, and Flair is out to cut a promo. He's out with Jim Ross, And Jim Ross asks Flair to step in and brings up last week's match with Butch Reed, but tonight he will face Ted DiBiase. Flair asks, where's the crying towel? Everyone's crying about what me and Slater we did, and breaking my heart, Butch Reed can't be with us tonight. JR, you were right. DiBiase has a shot and opportunity to get his ranks into history. Dick Murdoch comes out and says, I respect you in a North American heavyweight title, but a crying shame that DiBiase was picked as your opponent. It should be me. Flair says, if you don't like it, you have to talk to Bob Geigel. It's not my problem. We come back from a commercial to start our title match, and DiBiase's in the ring. Announcer actually makes the announcements and intros of Flair and DiBiase, but Murdoch tells Ted to step out of the ring. I got you into college wrestling, everything you know. You turned out to be a great athlete, but you don't deserve this shot. So step out. I'll handle Flair. DiBiase said he's held the North American title more than anyone in Mid-South, including you. Today is my day. And so this is really where it goes south. He goes, you are yesterday's news and headlines. And Murdoch all of a sudden attacks DiBiase. Flair then attacks DiBiase from behind, sending him out to the floor. And Murdoch sends DiBiase to the ring post, busting Ted wide open. And there's just a sick amount of blood out on the floor. Flair takes the mic and says it's a tragedy, but appears Ted had an opportunity, and his head is somewhere else. So I'm going home. I can look without breaking a sweat. And we go later into the show, and Watts said DiBiase being attended to. There's a problem stopping the blood, so they're putting a pressure bandage to his head. So, I like this commentary where Watts makes the comment pressure bandage to kind of say, hey, we got to stop the bleeding. So just a nice little touch there on the commentary, I thought. DiBiase demands his title match with Flair. He's taken a year to get it, and Flair will use this as an excuse not to defend it against him. Watts brings up Durant Leonard, I guess, which was at the Superdome, and he quit for a stomach ache. DiBiase is not going to quit for this. So, and I respect DiBiase for that. So we will get the title match. If bandage comes loose, could get gory. So use parental discretion. Let the children watch or weak stomach. No stopping for blood. So we had this great, huge build-up, and it's kind of like I love that Flair's been here 2 episodes in a row, and he's had his own little mini feud here. So we had Reed last week. Now we have DiBiase, and he's a part of this, what appears to be what will be an all-time angle for Mid-South that is actually pretty legendary. So we go to Flair versus DiBiase is the match. DiBiase's all bandaged up in a bloody mess. Flair attacks with chops, throws him out of the ring, more chops and punches back in the ring. Same. DiBiase reverses an Irish whip into a backdrop. He does an elbow, dropping fists and stomps. Flair hits some chops. Ref checks Ted, and he's just a freaking bloody mess. Flair pushes the ref out of the way, hits a back suplex for 2, then throws him out of the ring again. And there's so much blood all over the concrete. Like, it's amazing. Just this is on TV, and this much blood on the concrete, and the stain visual is uncanny. Dr. Death comes out as Flair works Ted back in the ring. DiBiase and Flair trade blows, but Ted knocks him down. Irish whip, and over the corner, DiBiase staggering, selling the blood loss, which I think was really good selling by DiBiase. He suplexes Flair back in for 2, and again, DiBiase is just a mess. Later on in the match, Flair is now bleeding red from all. I think Flair's hair is bleeding. However, I think it's more Ted's blood than Flair's. So I'm not sure if Flair actually got busted open. Flair takes DiBiase down on a whip into the corner. DiBiase gets up and throws Flair off the top rope. The ring is now stained as well as the floor. DiBiase hits a power slam, but he is too weak to cover. DiBiase atomic drops Flair for the knee in a figure 4. Flair gets to the ropes. DiBiase goes for another figure 4, but Flair kicks him off, sending DiBiase over to the top rope and the concrete. And JR, I mean, I can't undersell how great Jim Ross is on this commentary. His energy's great. Ref counts to 10, and Flair wins. Murdoch comes out and attacks, and DiBiase, and then he brain busters him on the concrete. And I've got to say this about Dick Murdoch. His brain buster always looks so realistic. Like some of the brain busters you see, like Jimmy Garvin, looks like it's a suplex and it doesn't even hit the head. His Murdoch's brain busters are so spot on. So then we go to the aftermath, and we go later in the show as everyone's attending to Ted. The situation is serious, so we'll try to schedule Dr. Death versus Jake Roberts at a later date, which was supposed to be the next one. They say cranial spinal concussion, so good wordsmithing on this. He's unconscious and convulsing, and basically this ends up. So what an amazing little hour of TV with the build, the match, and the aftermath. Flair's going to go on his merry way to Starrcade. Now you have Dibiase and Murdoch set up as a future feud, and Jesus Christ, was Flair a busy man in November. So I believe up first is Callum. Talk to us about this whole thing with Flair and Dibiase.
Well, this whole thing was excellent, wasn't it?
Amazing.
Outstanding. So the first thing you see is the guy coming on and goes like that. This is rated TVMA. Please use discretion when watching it. I'm like, why is this? It's like you never see this on the network. So I go along and I make a wee jokey note here that says Joe Watts looks like a golf commentator, and I'm expecting him to give us an update from the 14th fairway any time now. And then, my God, does it take a turn from that wee jokey note there? Because my next note is, I take it this blood is the reason for TVMA. That is horrific. It's like, how do you? So I think they said at some point that they're in a boys' club for the TV taping. And how do you explain that on a Monday morning? That there's just this pool of a man's blood where he could have died is just right there when they come in on Monday morning. I had a note that, so something that puzzled me was, obviously they had Dick Murdoch coming in trying to challenge Ric Flair. And obviously he's got the history of being Dusty Rhodes' tag partner, and I thought that they might have been playing into that. It might have been better for them to play into that to make him sound less condescending towards Ted DiBiase, going, "You're not going to be able to do this." Mm-hmm. But I don't know if that was the done thing at the time. Given that Starrcade was coming up, maybe Mid-South weren't involved in that. I don't know. I don't know the context around that, but I thought that might have been an angle that they were going to go down. But I'm glad they didn't, because the whole thing was excellent. I only know Ted DiBiase as being the $1 Million Man, so to see him like this was completely new to me. Obviously, I knew he was a big star before that, but seeing him wrestle as like the underdog babyface was a complete breath of fresh air for me. And then you've got Eddie JBL levels of blood and gore, and I can't say enough about it. I went for the match. I went 3 1/4 for the match. Because I thought it was excellent, the story that they told, and it was brilliant. And the aftermath of it, Joe Watts, right immediately after the match, looks as if he's going to cry because of what he's seen in front of him. And as much as I thought he looked like a golf correspondent before, he's a low-key MVP for me in this whole thing, for that report that he did after. Talking about the spinal concussion and all that sort of thing. He really played up how serious it was. And then they say that we were going to bring you Dr. Death Steve Williams against Jake Roberts, but we can't. This is more important than that. And you're like, wow, they're treating this with so much importance that 2 of their biggest stars were going to face off, but we're not going to see that. They'll rearrange it at some other point, because this is their number one priority just now. Yep. The whole thing from start to finish was so good. I cannot speak highly enough of it.
Yeah, it's an all-time legendary feud from Mid-South, this whole setup. And, here a couple other things I'll add. I also went 3 1/4 on it. And it got me thinking about, this is what this and the Reed stuff was what's getting me going to look at Mid-South again. So if you go to the network, Mid-South starts in 1981. Ted DiBiase is the North American champion on the very first episode in 1981. So he's had it so we're in 85. So this is a 4-year run he's had. So there's a whole lot of other DiBiase to watch on the network that has just kind of opened up a treasure chest for me to go back and watch. So that's why I like watching this stuff, because now I can go back and watch the build full on. And what a great use of your world heavyweight champion, right? Ric Flair is here. They use him for a world title match. They use him for a great angle. They did a great angle with him last week. It made me think. Like, I recently had to watch Rock versus Hulk Hogan for chicken salad, and I thought to myself, what a freaking waste of bringing The Rock in just to sell Hogan and Vince McMahon for the pay-per-view for WrestleMania. This is how you bring in a star, and this is how you utilize them. You build a feud, you have a great match, and when you leave the territory better with a freaking hot feud. So, anyway, Rory, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, on the second edition of Mid-South that is on the network, Ted DiBiase actually commentates throughout that one. And
Correct.
yes, he is better. He is better there than he is at Sold Out 97.
Yes.
Not Rumble 94 though. That is gold standard with the headset. Anyway, I digress. Yeah, I'm with Callum. When I fired up this edition of Mid-South and I was greeted by the TVMA greeting, I did check that I hadn't flicked onto one of the ECW presentations from 1995 or something, as that's where we normally get treated to those. So I thought, okay, maybe now we'll get a presented in its complete form disclaimer as well, which normally means they've edited out something quite nasty. But if there was something edited out of this, then I'm not sure I do want to know what it was, because, yeah, this was in a very literal sense, close to the bone, wasn't it? Or indeed very close to Ted DiBiase's cerebellum, with all the blood that we saw pouring out of his head. This was extraordinary, and I wasn't prepared for it, which just made me all the more rapt for it. Maybe you could call it bloodlust if you like, I don't know. The setup was magnificent. DiBiase saying that he is deserving of being the number one contender. His supposed mentor telling him, no, he isn't. You're not there yet. I am. Wait in line, kiddo. Then beats him up. Then eventually it rolls around with DiBiase, staggers out like he's just returned from the trenches or something, puts himself through torpor for 7 or 8 minutes. I talked about the visual of the 4-on-4 earlier. It is run very close, if not surpassed, by Ted DiBiase wearing the crimson mask with the bandage just looped around his head. It's hanging on there by barely a wing and a prayer, and Flair is just utterly going to town on him. At the end, DiBiase is beaten, but he's certainly not disgraced. As you guys have rightly said, it automatically sets up a smoking hot feud for him when he eventually comes to. That brainbuster on the floor was sickening. I loved it, but it was sickening.
Mm-hmm.
And the Joel Watts narrated package at the end, I thought it was very matter of fact the way he delivered it, like he was voicing a Open University piece on nuclear fission in 1978. And here we see Mr. DiBiase being wheeled into the emergency room. It was all very clear. It was sort of thing that maybe if I was narrating it, that's how perhaps I would have done it myself as well. So yeah, me and Joel Watts, kindred spirits. That's quite the thought. Yeah, phenomenal, incredible presentation. We were talking about this before we started recording, Sean, that the Flair DiBiase stuff itself in ring, it was more of a contributory angle than a match, really. See, I will probably go 4 3.25 for what we got, but this is a 5-star presentation. Make no mistake.
Yeah, absolutely a 5-star presentation for not even an hour of TV. I don't know what it equated to, but just incredible. So, and again, we're 2 weeks away from Starrcade, and here's Flair in this other big freaking angle that probably half the country doesn't even know he's doing at the time. It's just crazy. Dr. G, your thoughts on this whole thing with Flair and DiBiase?
Well, this is vintage Bill Watts right here. Bill Watts lives the kayfabe. I mean, he was very tough on his wrestlers, making sure heels and baby faces didn't hang out. He was into that realistic, feuds. And, maybe he was kind of doing that Attitude Era kind of stuff back in the 80s. We just didn't realize it because obviously it was a territory. But, Dick Murdoch, I agree. That brain bust, he always made his look very realistic. I mean, again, another guy that, again, you hear more things as time goes on, he really wasn't a great person in real life. But in terms of as a wrestler, you have to respect what he does. He's good in ring, and he's also he was always a better heel. I know he kind of went back and forth the heel babyface thing. Now, going back to Flair and Dibiase, Dibiase before he went to WWF was supposed to be the NWA champion. He was going to be the guy, especially after Terry Taylor, Magnum TA, was injured. So,
well, I think this was part of the storyline to start that journey for him to do it, because he got screwed out of it here, and I think it really started the journey where he was going to go and win it. I think this is where it started.
No, it is. I believe that, and again, DiBiase was one of those guys that went back and forth as heel and babyface. But in the situation, he actually played the babyface role here really, really well, I thought, especially with Flair. And the match, I agree. The presentation of the whole thing, 5 stars. Match, I went to 3.25 stars on this because I maybe again because I marked out kind of like you were saying, Sean, in the last match. Like I kind of marked out because the whole package, but I thought it was very well done. And again, just setting up and planting the seed. And again, it would have been interesting to see if DiBiase did not, kind of like how we say about Magnum TA, if DiBiase didn't go to WWF, like would he have made a good world champion? I mean, we know what Ted DiBiase could do in the ring. He's one of the best. But this stuff is just golden. It really is. And because, I've watched a lot of Mid-South over the years. There's some stuff that's just kind of garbage, but then there's some stuff, boy, when their stuff is good, it's good. And Jim Ross, good showcasing here of his talent and why he went on to bigger and better things in the future. So just magnificent stuff. 5-star in terms of the whole presentation, that end video. Just I really enjoyed it. Thank you for including this in this into the whole Crockett thing. It's a nice little gem. You really put it well together. I have to give you a lot of props for that, because I don't know if I would have thought of putting this into this whole thing that we're doing here. So it was really kind of a gem that we weren't expecting.
Well, I do that from here and there, especially with Flair, because I like to give context about him, how busy he was, because outside of Crockett, he was doing a lot of other shit. And I think it's important, if there's stuff out there that we could go and look at that not many people have seen, this would be a great one to go back and see. So if you have not seen this angle on Mid-South TV the weekend of November 16th, look it up on the network. It's an all-timer. And again,
he was everywhere.
Yeah,
he really was.
Well, we're going to get ready to go somewhere else here after, because he goes to Memphis and then back to Mid-South. And then we're going to go over that on the second half of this podcast. But
I remember as a kid, Sean, that I watched a lot of wrestling because down in Florida, like I said, I got a lot of it. So I used to say to my dad, I'm like, oh my gosh, Gordon Soley and Ric Flair, they're like on every show, because Gordon Soley did, one time he did Georgia, then he did Florida, and then he did some Continental, and then he did that that Pro Wrestling Weekly, and it was like, and then Flair, you saw him, in Memphis, you saw him in Mid-South, you saw him in Florida, you saw him in Crockett. So it was like, I was like, oh, how do these guys, when you're a kid, you're like, what kind of schedule do these guys keep? He's everywhere.
That's what's so fun for me about this show, is just to go back and I had never seen this angle with DiBiase before. I had never seen that 6-man we talked about, and the rest of the matches we talked about tonight, I had never seen them before either. So it's kind of a big deal for me. And again, guys, go back and watch Mid-South, and I would encourage you to go back and start watching Mid-South as a whole. If you have time and you're looking for wrestling that you've never watched before, I highly encourage you to go back and watch the Mid-South, because this angle especially got me all fired up to go start watching it this past weekend. It's absolutely incredible. So with that, we are going to take our break. When we come back, we are going to start with a match in Memphis with Ric Flair defending his world title there. Then we're going to have another world title defense from Flair in Mid-South. Then we have another match with the Raging Bull and Buddy Landell, and then we will wrap it up, our episode with the Road Warriors and a Russian segment. So with that, I am Sean Kidd with Dr. G, Colin McDougall, and Rory McNamara, and we will be right back after the break.
What time is that? I
Place to Be Nation, welcome back to the second half of November 85 Part 2. We just covered up through, I believe it was 11/16, and now we're going to jump over to November 18th, 1985, so we're getting closer and closer, inching our way to Starrcade. So we just talked about Ric Flair in Mid-South. Ric Flair is now in Memphis, so not only did he do Mid-South, Japan, and these other territories, Houston, he's now in Memphis in Lawler country. And he's facing a relative unknown, Koko Ware. At least he was unknown to me in 1985. So kind of like Butch Reed, the only Koko Ware that I really knew of growing up or even coming into this podcast was WWF Koko Ware. And my biggest memory of him was facing, crazy enough, Butch Reed at WrestleMania 3, so kind of weird symmetry here that we're talking about tonight. So he actually has a shot at Ric Flair for the World Heavyweight title in Memphis. So Lance Russell opens it and says people didn't think that Koko Ware versus Flair would be much of a bout. And Koko Ware at this time is the Mid-America champ, says the Mid-America champ Koko might be most underrated wrestler in the United States. So for context, the Mid-America title, it was an NWA title. Koko had just won it 2 days earlier, so he's only been a champion for 2 days. The title goes back to 1957 and then was unified with the CWA. And anyone that knows late 80s, CWA is the big Memphis territory that gradually goes away and was kind of like the liaison with the AWA. That's where Jerry Lawler was wrestling. And I believe he was the champion before he faced Curt Hennig for the world title. So long history in this. And some big names have had it. So Harley Race has held this belt. Randy Savage, Bobby Eaton, Rocky Johnson, Jacques Rougeau, Jerry the King Lawler, JYD, Jeff Jarrett. So really quite the lineage of this Mid-America title, which I had no idea existed, but I was very familiar with the CWA. So, all right, so we're going to go to the match. Dusty Rhodes at ringside in the chair so I kind of like this continuation of Dusty Rhodes is kind of following Ric Flair across the country as he's getting ready for Starrcade. Lance says Koko is the first African-American to challenge for the world title in the Mid-South Coliseum, which is a pretty historic moment here. Flair takes the early advantage with a headlock on Matt. Later, Koko gets control with the same move to Flair with a shoulder block, hip toss. There's a crisscross spot in between. And Dusty is outside reading on Koko. Flair goes on with chops and punches, but Koko fights back, sending Flair down for a 2 count. Koko takes him down again for another 2 on a back and forth punch fist. Koko again, another 2 with a body press. Flair goes outside the stall. They go back in with some mat work. Koko spins around and sends Flair to the floor. And then later on, Flair sends Koko outside with chops and kicks. Then Flair gets into a shoving match with the ref. He hits Koko with an elbow and a knee for 2 and then yells at Dusty on the outside. He works over Koko on the mat with a hammerlock, using a rope for leverage. He stomps the arm, goes into an arm bar. Koko fights back, but Flair pulls him down by his hair. Again, later on in the match, Dusty's reading on Koko. Koko reverses a figure 4, but Flair breaks the hold. Koko gets a backside for 2. Flair tosses Koko outside, chops him on the apron, but Koko gets back in with a sunset for 2. Flair misses a knee, and Koko with a figure 4 for a few 2 counts until it's broken on the ropes. Koko works the leg. There's some chops exchanged. Flair goes down on a drop kick. He hits another drop kick. Bill Dundee comes out and takes down Dusty Rhodes with powder. Koko goes to help, but Flair nails him with a knee from behind for the 3. Dundee and Flair work over Koko, and Dusty comes in, throws Flair off the top rope, and the faces stand tall. So, again, a nice little match here that, another hidden gem that I never knew would have existed. I like Dusty's here. I like Flair's here. And again, another situation, Flair's in and out with a world title defense. Furthers a feud apparently between Dundee and Koko, probably for this American title, and him and Dusty are on their way to Starrcade. So with that, I will go to Rory. What were your thoughts on Koko versus Ric Flair?
Yeah, this was a great find, Sean. Thanks for digging this one out for us.
Yep.
Seeing a 24-minute Koko Ware, get it right, Koko Ware singles match, you could normally fit in, for what I've seen of him in the past, 24 other Koko Ware singles matches in that time, normally with him losing in very short order. So seeing him going toe-to-toe with Ric effing Flair for such a long time was quite the culture shock for me. I think that's why when I first watched this match, I was extremely enthusiastic about it. I actually did watch it again. I've tempered my score rating a little bit. I was saying I went for 3 stars in the end on this one, but it's still a very strong 3 stars. I don't want to detract from Koko in particular when I say that, because he showed some real fire in this one, and he managed to keep it up as well. I mean, it's very easy to do that in a 3 or 4 minute losing effort on challenge or something. 25 minutes against the best in the business, that's a feat and a half, and I think he was up to hit here. It probably was a bit long for what he actually had in his locker. They did repeat a couple of things here and there. I did feel there was a mark lopping off before we got to the finish, but it was a lot of fun. Koko, I say, more than held his own in there, felt like he belonged. Flair, understandably, given the month he'd had and was still about to have, was, I think, reining himself in a little bit. I don't think we got all cylinders Flair here, but again, much like his best buddy Dusty on promos, Flair at about 6 or 7 cylinders. No, anybody else should still just get out of the way with that and let the guy do it. You're not coming close to him even there. Finish was excellent. Protected your newcomer up to a point. Flair gets away, sneaks with a victory. You still have the baby faces standing tall. Dusty is Dusty in that regard. Lance Russell, what a voice. I just want to go on record and say that. I'm not sure how many more opportunities I will have to wax lyrical about him. Speaks with such clarity and authority. Picks out things you would never otherwise have realised. One of those, he talks, you listen. There is a reason that he is still spoken as probably the greatest wrestling commentator, certainly in available modern times. That maybe there were some great voices back in the 20s or 30s that have been lost to history, but for stuff that we are now able to get hold of, I think Lance Russell is right up there. He probably is number one. I just need to hear a bit more of him to confirm it, but I'm sure if I ever get the chance, then I will. He's fantastic.
Yeah, there's a ton of Memphis compilations on YouTube if you ever want to get yourself some Lance Russell. So if you ever get a chance to do that, so
I would gladly check them out. Yeah.
All right, so you went
him and 5 for the commentary.
All right, so you went 3 stars. I actually went 2 3/4, kind of like what you said, mainly because I felt like Flair wasn't bringing his best. I felt like he was holding back a little bit, obviously because he's getting ready for Starrcade. But I thought it was great shine for Koko, but I went a little bit lower than you did. All right, Dr. G, what did you think of Koko versus Flair?
I went 3 stars on this. I agree with you guys. Flair wasn't at his total best, but I thought Koko Ware really did a nice job. I agree, Rory. You're absolutely right. The Koko Ware we think of is, the WWF Koko Ware.
25-minute MSG openers with Danny Davis the referee. That's.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And now I remember Koko Ware originally. I mean, I did watch some Memphis, obviously back in that time. He was actually in the PYT, Pretty Young Things, with Norvell Austin down in Florida.
See, I did read about him in PWI. That's how I did know who he was back then.
Yep, he was. He was. I would say at the beginning of the year. I want to say it was like either January or February of '85. He and Norvell Austin were the NWA Florida U.S. Tag Team Champions. Florida had and so now this is we're moving ahead here in November, and he's back in Memphis. So he kind of went back. That team kind of went back and forth. They were in a bunch of different territories, but with Koko Ware, I thought he did a nice job. And, they sold it as he's like the young guy, but, he had been wrestling since 1978 by this point. So he's 7 years in, but they kind of made him almost like the underdog against Flair. Like you said, not one of Flair's greatest efforts, but even when he's not at his greatest, he's still very good. So better than most. I went 3 stars. I thought it was, some really good stuff. And Rory, in regards to Lance Russell, you have Lance Russell Gordon Soley, and Jim Ross, probably the top three announcers. But let me tell you something. Lance Russell is very underrated. Sometimes he's not always mentioned with JR and Gordon Soley, but he's really good. If you watch a lot of him, he's kind of like, he'll kind of mark out a little bit. He'll get all excited and crazy, kind of like a David Crockett, but just a little bit more refined, I guess. It's I can't explain it. He's just a very solid broadcaster. Just very professional, and somebody you just enjoy listening to his voice. And you knew by the cadence of his voice, how serious things were when it came to certain situations, and especially a lot of the feuds that went down in Memphis. So you're absolutely right. He's if he's not the best, he's one of the best.
All right, Colin, what'd you think?
I thought this was really, really good again. And same as everyone else, my only experience of Koko Ware is being the Birdman and High Energy. So this was another eye opener. Lance Russell saying Koko might be the most underrated wrestler in the country. It's probably true when you see some of the stuff in hindsight that he was able to do. But he's now unfairly the benchmark for shite Hall of Fame inductions. He's always that footnote. Well, if Koko Ware can be in the Hall of Fame, which I think is like so.
It's kind of shit on, right?
Yeah, it's so unfair and so disrespectful to a guy who was like supremely talented. The ebbs and flows in the match. He had Koko starting off, proving to Flair that he was worthy of a title shot, despite like being, as you say, maybe a relative unknown to people or to Flair. Then you get Flair dominating because he was just riding out his chance because his experience would pull through, and he would probably get the win eventually. To then Koko getting right back into it, Flair getting desperate and then stealing the win. Through nefarious circumstances. So I thought it was really, really good. I actually went 3.25 stars.
Wow.
I thought it was really good, and compared to what everyone else was saying, maybe the extra quarter star is for Bill Dundee, an actual Scotsman being on the show. If you want to put it like that, but if you want to justify the extra quarter star, but I think the extra quarter star is justified in the whole thing. I thought it was really, really good.
Hey, Colin, if it makes you feel better, as we get into 86, we'll see Bill Dundee and Crockett, if that'll get you excited. So.
Here we go. Oh, this is just...
So just give you a little sneak peek to make you feel good. I think he's like 80 years old, but you'll still see him in 86. I feel like he's 80 years old perpetually the whole time he wrestled because he always looks old.
Oh, I think so. I think the youngest he looked was when he was Sir William with the Good Lord.
Yes.
So, but just a thing on Lance Russell as well. He's, again, the commentary track can make, and I've got a note about a commentary track or lack thereof further on on a match we're going to speak about. But the commentary track can be everything. Just to think, at one point in the late 80s, early 90s, if I'm not mistaken, WCW had commentators under contract by the names of Tony Schiavone, Gordon Soley, Jim Ross, and Lance Russell all at the one time.
Absolutely crazy.
Ridiculous.
But
Thanks for
WWF
making that point, Callum. I meant to make that point. Awesome point.
But WWF was the big leagues, but you got the good shit down south. It's crazy, right, when you think about it. But anyway, so nice hidden gem there. So if you have not seen this match, as none of us has, I believe, seen it up until this point, go out and look at this one. It's on YouTube. So just look up Koko Ware versus Ric Flair. There's not a lot of options there. So sit back and enjoy this one. So with that, we're going to go to yet another match, and we're going to the November 23rd, 1985 World Championship Wrestling. And we have not talked about Manny Fernandez in a long time. I know we have a sombrero match, the very prestigious sombrero match coming up against Abdullah at Starrcade 85. But before we get there, we have Manny Fernandez versus Buddy Landell. So both of them are in big matches at Starrcade 85. Landell's going after Terry Taylor. The Bull will be fighting for his sombrero. All right, so two big players, like we said, at Starrcade. Manny, I always thought that Manny, the note I made, I always thought that Manny's little blonde tuft in his hair was a weird thing. Landell says, David Crockett, about time Jim Crockett got me someone almost worthy to face me. He again, comfortable, goes, he's a Mexican, you got to be ribbing me, man. So very uncomfortable mid-'80s Buddy Landell comment here. Let's see. So we go on. Tony says, the crowd is into this. David loves it. So do I. As Landell is kicking, asking Bull, he's kicking Bull if this is like real wrestling or is it karaoke or whatever. There's some crazy shit going on at the start of this match. We open Landell shots with a corner. Manny reverses a hip toss and shots by Bull. Buddy scoots out to hug Dylan. So Dylan is his manager at this point, so he's hugging JJ Dillon. David Crockett says Bull is prime and raging. Bull with the headlock, shoulder block. Landell gets a hip toss and a stomp. Bull gets a body press off the rope and leaps over Landell and backhands him in a really cool looking spot. Landell continues the shit talk, which is absolutely great. There's a nice arm drag by Buddy, but Bull pops back up and sends Buddy scurrying. Landell, another arm drag, a body slam, and an arm bar. There's a nice crisscross spot with a Bull leap and hip toss. Buddy gets a leg lock. Later on into the match where Bull gets a flying clothesline off a whip and gets a back flying elbow, but misses a knee off the second rope. Buddy gets a figure four that Bull reverses. J.J.'s Dillon helps Buddy get to the ropes. The bell rings and Bull fires up and hits the burrito, but the time has expired. And it's a lame ending. It's totally out of nowhere. It takes it out for me because I feel like these guys actually had a semi-decent match go, at least for Landell, who I've not really seen him in anything of context. We've seen Bull in other matches. Like, I think the very first match we watched on this podcast was him versus Anderson, but we haven't seen a whole lot of them. But I also made a note that it seemed like these guys were legit pissed off at each other because I felt like there was a lot of stiff in it. There's like some stiff stuff in this. And I felt like Bull, especially, was really pissed off at Landell. I went 2.25 stars. I didn't mind the time limit draw, but it seemed so sudden, and I felt like they could have gone somewhere with this. So I'm going to go to Dr. G. What did you think about this match?
I agree. 2.25 stars on this. It's funny. I remarked that as well. It did seem like there was some they didn't care for each other kind of thing, and I think especially on Bull's end. And again, I think this is when Landell was starting to have his issues, going on where he was not becoming reliable. And the sad thing is that he would have been a pretty good upper mid-card heel for many years. I thought he played it well. Yeah, he was kind of a Ric Flair ripoff, but that was the whole point of it. And I thought he actually did, played the role pretty well. And he wasn't a bad in-ring worker. And he definitely had the heel, tendencies down, and especially in his interviews. He kind of needed JJ as well, but he did a pretty good job. Even in the match, he was really kind of egging, the Bull on a little bit. So the ending was kind of typical. It was kind of typical in those days. A lot of times they did that whole time limit draw kind of thing in a lot of the matches, but 2.5 stars, I think is 2.25 stars. I'm sorry. I think is being kind. I think it didn't really deserve anything lower than that, but I wouldn't go any higher than that. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I thought it was solid. It was a good match. It was, we've seen some bangers in this episode, so it definitely didn't hold up to those. But it also makes me feel somewhat confident that, based on what we've seen tonight, we'll get a somewhat decent match between Landell and Taylor, who Taylor is a bad promo, and Landell, most of the stuff we've seen had Dylan talking for him. But I feel pretty confident in what we've seen tonight. Maybe we'll get a decent match with him out of Starrcade. You know what I mean?
Do you think? I think he would have been a pretty decent upper mid card guy. Battling for the U.S. title or the. Well, U.S. title, I guess.
Well, he's fighting for the national title at Starrcade, so
right, the national title. But I think if he could have kept his head on,
he would have been good with that too.
Yeah,
but but again, he has his issues, which we'll document over the next couple months, and he's in and out of Crockett several times over the next year and a half. So, and at one point, Callum, he actually comes back and he's partners with Bill Dundee, so you have that to look forward to as well. So, Colin, I'm going to turn it over to you. What do you think of this match?
I liked the start. Buddy was showing some comedy chops. When he's in the cockpit in the corner, and he looks over at Manny and goes, "Is this karate or is it wrestling? Come on now."
Yes.
So
I couldn't read my writing. It said karaoke. I meant to say karate. So, yeah, sorry about that. I meant to say karate. So.
And then I've got another note going. We've seen the best of Flair in these last few episodes. And now that I'm seeing Landell and he's calling himself the Nature Boy, it's like, how does he not suffer from imposter syndrome? I think maybe Landell's issue, or the issue that I've got with Landell, is that he does just look like great value Ric Flair, and I don't know if that's. I always get the impression that they were touting him as the second coming of Ric Flair as opposed to a Ric Flair impersonator. I'm certainly getting vibes of Ric Flair impersonator off him, but he's not doing much for me. He's not bad in the ring. He's not. We have seen much worse. It's not outright offensive what he does in the ring. It just, for whatever reason, I'm not getting it just about now. And it wasn't doing much for me in this one. And not even Bull and JJ could turn it around for me in this one. It did nothing for me. I might be slightly harsh in my mark for this one. I went 1.5.
Okay.
But I don't know if that's maybe, as you say, we've had bangers on the other matches. I don't know maybe if that's if I'd watched it in a sort of its own silo, it might be a wee bit better. But compared to everything else, it was miles away from it.
I think 1.5 is more acceptable than your take on the Ric Flair Wahoo match, so I could take 1.5 on this one.
Oh, it was miles better than that. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, you were wrong about that match. So this is your every episode pot shot at Flair Wahoo, but you're okay on this one. I'd go 1.5 on that. I could see that one. So, Rory, what did you think?
Yeah, gentleman's 2 from me here. It was competent, but not much more. Rather stop-start. I know that was sort of the point, so Buddy could get his lines in, but it's one of those where it went on long enough where you couldn't actually be heavily critical of it, and they had the opportunity there just to work a basic 10-minute in the gym match in front of the TV cameras, but it never threatened to be beyond that. Yeah, I haven't seen a whole lot of Buddy Landell doing the Ric Flair cosplay thing. Again, that's clearly the point, but it's there right in front of your face and it needs to be drawn attention to. For me, though, he just looks like REM guitarist Peter Buck wearing a judge's wig.
That's a pretty good comparison. That's pretty good.
It's all in the nose, especially here. REM fables the reconstruction here in 1985. Dead ringer, I tell you. So, yeah, the fact that's... Who does he look like? Yes, he looks like Peter Buck wearing a big white shiny wig. That's who. The fact that I spent most of this match trying to work out who exactly he looked like should tell you all you need to know. But that's all we got. And he's still, I know that he's got his own issues to deal with very shortly, but nothing as bad as in 10 years from now when he gets wheeled out to In Your House 5 and called Buddy Rydell by the ring announcer.
Oh, yeah, there's that. Yeah, another famous moment in the tragic career of Buddy Landell. So, all right. So with that, we have yet another Ric Flair world title defense, and this is Flair's 4th appearance tonight. This is insane how much Flair's working. So this is on November the 24th, and this is Ric Flair versus Jake the Snake Roberts from Mid-South. So Flair's out in his black and white feather robe. Again, what can you say? What more can you say about him? But Jake is dressed in like these, like, it's weird seeing Jake like this. He's in like a white tee and like red pants. And Flair looks at the shirt and seems to look unimpressed at him. But Jake, and I don't blame him, Jake looks absolutely ridiculous. So we start off with a shoving contest, and Flair grabs Snake's pants, and Jake DDTs him right out of the gate. And the crowd goes absolutely crazy, and the match hasn't even started yet. Flair is out as the ref checks on him. Jake is he's Flair says he's out of here after this, and he leaves. Ref gets on a mic. He says he needs to get back and wrestle. And Jake starts a DD chant with the crowd. The bell rings and the ref starts to count. So I really like this beginning and opening. It's very rare that you get kind of your champion out of the DDT. It took me aback. I didn't expect to see that happen so quickly. Flair comes back. He shoves the ref. The ref takes the belt, and we are off. The crowd keeps chanting DDT. There's lockups, and Jake gets the upper hand with the quick punches and the backdrop. Goes for the DDT again, but Flair backs into the ropes. Flair takes Jake outside, but then rolls him back in and for a headlock and a takeover for 2. We go later into the match. There's chops and punches. Jake gets a backslide for 2. There's a Flair sleeper on Jake. Jake drops forward into a turnbuckle and Flair hits his head. So I thought that was a nice little move by Jake. Flair later gets some chops and counts for 2. Jake blocks a D drop. And then he turns into a figure 4, and Flair screams in pain until he gets to the rope. We go back even later in the match. Flair gets an atomic knee drop on Jake's leg, and then another elbow drop for 2. Flair goes for a figure 4, but he drops on the leg. He misses it, and then he hurts his ass on the mat when he did it. Jake gets fired up. He comes back with a sleeper, but Flair gets a back suplex. He goes to the top rope again, but he gets tossed off. There's a knee to the face. Flair to the corner, and Jake goes for another knee. Flair moves, and Jake hits the corner. Flair goes for the figure 4, but Jake's small package is for 2. But Flair rolls over in his own small package for 3. Butch Reed is out, and Flair goes after him, and he sells he has a neck brace on. He pulls the tights, and we get a backdrop and punches, and then Flair bails. So a lot of stuff happened in this match. I was really happy with the beginning of it and how it started with Jake getting the DDT that popped me. And I might have overrated this match because it's kind of slow in parts, not a lot of action, kind of some stalling. I actually went 3 stars. I actually didn't mind this match that much at all, to be honest with you. So, Corey, Colin, what did you think of this match? Colin, come off mute. There you go.
Thank you. I thought this was really good as well. The crowd for that first DDT it went wild for a match.
Me too. I loved it.
It was unbelievable. And Flair does more in 5 minutes by doing absolutely nothing for the DDT.
By the way, 26 minutes. This whole thing was 26 minutes. Just to throw that out there. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
But by doing nothing for 5 minutes, Ric Flair did more for the DDT, for one guy's move than most people will do in a career. And then again for in times for during the match, he puts over the DDT as been like death. There was times where he was trying to avoid the DDT like his life depended on it, and every time Jake went for it, the crowd were going, "Oh," because they know that if he hits it, it's game over. No ifs, buts, or maybes. Jake is winning, and Jake's going to be Flair's losing the title, and they're going to see a title change right there. Flair, when he's acting desperate, because he did the headbutt, low blow, and it's just anything to get a breather, to get a bit of an advantage, is excellent. And I think it's something that could work today. You never see a desperate. When was the last time we saw like a desperate champion doing anything they could to win? I remember the only thing I can think of is I remember briefly Randy Orton doing it in one of his many feuds with John Cena, where he intentionally slapped the referee because he couldn't think of another way to beat John Cena. But that's the last thing I can. That was almost 10 years ago, or over 10 years ago. I can't think of any other time. It could be really effective today. I loved the pace of the match. They weren't going breakneck speed, but they weren't plodding either. And the crowd was. This is where I noted that sometimes no commentary can be a benefit, because you're hearing the natural reaction. It's not drowned out in any way, and you're getting the full effect as if you were there. Which is the only benefit to having no commentary, I feel. But I went the same as you. A good match, a good post match. I went 3 stars as well.
Yeah, the beginning of this match was so unexpected out of nowhere, and for Mid-South, I'm sure this is a big draw for Mid-South with Jake, and the DDT was a hot move, and getting your world champion in it this before the matches even start is pretty incredible. Rory, what did you think of this match?
Yeah, I also went 3 stars. Just a quick question. You might not know the answers to this, but so we watched this on the YouTubes with, say, no commentary, but it was fairly professionally shot. Was this intended for TV broadcast?
I don't know. Like some of these matches that I find like they don't have commentary on them. There's a couple we've had, and they look professionally shot. So I don't know if this is just like one of those arena cameras and they don't have commentary or whatever. But I have no idea. I just found it on a search, and I was like, oh, look at this.
I'm very glad you did once more. Yeah, that as Callum rightly says, that is how you get a move over. If you hit Ric Flair, world champion, with that move before the match even started, and for 5 or 6 minutes, the man is just playing dead, then as a crowd, you're starting to think, hang on a minute, if he gets it on again after the bell rings, we could be seeing something a bit special here. And there's always that aura and buzz. Anytime Jake's anywhere near him, all he's got to do is just twist his left arm into anything approaching a circle, and the fans think it could be just another 3 seconds away. That's how you make these things seem devastating. You can, in pro wrestling, you can tell any story you want. It's just a case of whether you're going to go ahead and do it. And here the story is the DDT is going to kill you, and it is lights out when it is a simple, again, really simple stuff, but you can draw your own conclusions, branch off from it any way you wish, and that's when pro wrestling is at its best. I think we've got a lot of good psychology from Jake throughout this match. When the match itself did get going, it was about 16, 17 minutes, probably even at this time a little long for pure in-ring for Jake. I mean, I love Jake's in-ring psychology as much as anybody else, but here he was called upon to wrestle a little bit more. Managed to hold his own, certainly far from disgraced himself out there, but there were more just little hints here and there of the psychological Jake we've come to know and love, or know and hate, rather than him trying to get down and grapple, where he would look a little out of his depth if we didn't have somebody like Flair just to see him through some of the more tricky exchanges. But yeah, I did like the desperation of the finish. That Flair was really starting to panic and thought, okay, let's just get out of this. I've had enough this month already. I'm just going to cheat and get the hell out of there. That's the story I think that one told, and they did it well. Yeah, another tremendous find here, Sean, and 3 stars for the whole package. Really strong stuff. It was great to see Jake at this stage.
And the other thing you got to think about is, so we've talked about Butch Reed, we've talked about Dibiase, we've talked about Snake tonight. All of them have faced Ric Flair, and guess what? In a year from now, all of them are in WWF. So that just tells you, like, they just gut Mid-South and take all their stars, right? It's really interesting to go back and watch. Dr. G, your thoughts?
You guys all really summed it up really well. Pretty much everything that I would pretty much say about it. But the only thing that I never realized how over the DDT was before WWF. I mean, I knew that he had the move, the Snake had the move, but I didn't realize how over it was, because we think everything, when we were younger, we thought a lot of these things were created in the WWF, but Jake the Snake was pretty hot at this time. This again, good find. I didn't, like I said, I watched so much wrestling when I was younger. You'd sometimes get it all confused because there's so much going on at that time, but this was really wonderful. I just love watching the psychology of Jake the Snake, and then you add somebody like Ric Flair. I agree with you, Rory, in the fact that Snake had to work a little longer than he normally does, but Ric Flair, working with Ric Flair, you never have to worry. Ric Flair leads you. That's why he is great at what he does, or what he did at that time, and it's a nice matchup, and I never even realized those two faced each other in such a big match like that. So, Sean, great find by you. Gave it 3 stars as well. Really enjoyed it. The psychology, it's just, again, we may be marking out sometimes more on some of these things, more for the psychology or the way the angle plays out more than we do the actual in-ring wrestling, but when you put the whole package together, which that's what it is, you don't need to have, a lot of what we see today, a lot of these crazy moves and flips and flops. It's the whole psychology, and that's what drew me to pro wrestling. And this is vintage right here. This is a nice match to watch. If you're training to be a wrestler, this isn't a bad match to watch, to show you how two great in-ring psychology wrestlers go at it, and how this story. I mean, you just heard that crowd, DDT. I mean, they were just so into it. And I didn't realize that move was so over before he came to the WWF. So good stuff. Thank you for finding that. Good gem again.
So that kind of ends our match watches for tonight. But I got to say, I think out of all the shows we've done since we started this podcast, definitely the best matches out of the whole run we've done so far.
No doubt.
Multiple 3-star matches, multiple Flair World Title matches. I mean, This episode brought the match game tonight, so I'll be curious to see if we can ever top what we got here tonight. So, with that, we are going to jump over to 11:30:85 World Championship Wrestling. Now, yes, Starrcade has already happened at this point, but this is one of those shows where they kind of just put on because I don't think the Starrcade was totally kind of entrenched yet. They were still trying to figure out their angles and what they were going to do. But I popped this on because it's November 30th, 85 World Championship Wrestling. Doesn't really give you a sneak peek of anything that happened in Starrcade. So we're gonna cover that in March. We'll cover Starrcade, but we're gonna put this on here. So we got a few segments in here to talk about because they really both affect how they're going to move forward into the future in a couple of angles. So we have the Road Warriors facing Black Bart and Thunderfoot, which I'm not going to talk about the match because obviously it's a squash match. But Ivan Koloff comes out and says the LOD is a people's choice as representation of America, and they talk about how big, bad, and great they are. They are nothing but liars. Paul comes over and yells. Paul Ellering comes over and yells, "Do more thinking, less talking." And he's got one of his badass kimono dragon robes on, which I love those. He says, "You all so much bragging. Ivan thinks he's tough. All he sees is a yellow streak. People in this country know who can put on an end to the Russians." Koloff hits Paul. Nikita hits Koloff from behind. Tony gets excitable, and almost as excitable as David Crockett. And David Crockett just stands there like a tool, and Tony's the one that's actually getting excited. Hawk runs over, starts fighting with Ivan and Nikita. Animal wins the match in the ring. All three Russians are now beating on Hawk. All three run to the ring, attack Animal, and now Crockett starts stroking out now that he's come out of his trance. They include a clothesline with a chain as Crockett literally starts spazzing out. I don't know what happened. I think he got like a late cue or something. Hawk finally runs in with a chair. The Russians bail, and the Warriors recover and carry Paul off. This leads to a promo later in the show. Tony, with the Road Warriors, Tony calls the attack on Paul and called for act. Road Warriors are so pissed off, and their paint is flaking. They just look so freaking just so angry. Hawk says, "All our lives we've been together, and nothing ever happened like what we saw here. We don't want to have friends, but we are from this stinking country. Russians ain't. Forget about summit meetings." Animal pushes Tony aside. Hawk says, "World War III started today. It's inevitable now that Animal and me have to get in the ring with the Russians. Every promoter in the world has to sign this match." Animal's coughing a lot to sell the chain, which I thought was a nice little piece in the background. "We only have one thing on our mind, Russians. We're not going to be happy until hands are around your necks." Animal starts coughing, says Paul handles our money. He's important to us. We ain't like you, cheap shots from behind. My manager back there is hurting bad. All three morons will pay. And then, like Hawk said, we don't have friends, but we are from this country. We hate your country, and we hate you. So really kind of the first inkling of what the first major feud is going to be with the Road Warriors, especially after that little tease we saw with the Horsemen and them with Dusty and TA. But Rory, what did you think about this segment with the Russians and the Road Warriors?
Yeah, imagine using a real life standoff situation to build a wrestling angle, as if that would ever happen again after 1985. Oh, sorry, just 5 years to wait. Yeah. Okay. Again, we're saying it a lot over the last couple of weeks, but with good reason. A lot of the language used here now doesn't hold up in February 2021. Almost doesn't need to be said, but at the same time it does. But yeah, just another simple but strong angle, wasn't it? The heels building heat on the badass face team by taking them down with an effing chain. That's how you do it. That's how you believably let the bad guys get the upper hand in the build-up. And then when the bell finally rings, when he's getting the ring, then you're going to see the faces get theirs. And really, really building block stuff. But even with the most simple bits of Lego, you can still create a spaceship, right? And that's what we got here.
Yeah, it's like textbook wrestling 101. This is how you textbook book. And again, I also like the fact that they humanized the Road Warriors. You have these badasses, but they just humanized them and got them in their first program, and I think it's a pretty good program to kick them off with. So, Dr. G, what did you think of this?
Totally agree. I mean, again, the Road Warriors were always so dominant that, you just felt like they were unbeatable, and now you have some formidable opponents, and oh wow, now this is kind of getting scary. These guys are. These guys could give them a run for their money, and you're right. It humanized them a bit, and it just made the Road Warriors, the fans behind the Road Warriors, even more. And again, I really another team that I didn't really maybe respect as much. I'm really enjoying the Russians. I'm enjoying, Ivan Koloff really did a good job in helping Nikita, helping, Crusher, really kind of, he was the veteran by far at that point. So he really, really took those guys under his wing and really made them a force to be reckoned with. So I really, like you said, good textbook wrestling, the way they set up the angle, and makes you again want to see these two teams face each other, and that's what it's all about. That's what these television shows were all about, is to get you to come out and pay some money to watch these guys go at each other. So good stuff.
Yep. And Colin, what did you think?
I think one of the earliest catchphrases we came up with on this Best Relations was "It's not rocket science." It doesn't need to be rocket science. You have two teams that don't like each other. You give them a reason not to like each other with this vicious chain attack, which I thought was excellent. I love it when they do that. And you're off to the races, and immediately you've got a match that you want to see. As I said, the chain. I mean, first of all, you've got Paul Ellering's kimono, which is always a highlight.
Mm-hmm.
You have got then the chain clothesline, which is excellent, and I was dying with laughter seeing the Road Warriors after this vicious attack carrying Paul Ellering's corpse away from the ring. It's just no grace whatsoever. Only the best medical treatment in Jim Crockett Promotions. The Road Warriors promo or interview with Tony was I thought was really, really good. I was always under the impression from the ones that I can remember, the Road Warriors, the promos that I can remember, the Road Warriors were always shouty, incoherent. They're just saying words but not saying a great deal at all. But this one was really good. They had Hawk had everything together with the declaration of war and all that sort of thing. I thought the whole thing from start to finish with these two was excellent.
Yeah, so I like that. This is kind of like even though Starrcade is over, it's almost like, hey, here's one of the feuds you're going to see post Starrcade. So I kind of like that sneak peek under the tent as well. All right, our final segment of the night. To close us out before we get to Starrcade next month is Arn Anderson. And Crockett and Tony says TV title is the greatest title in the world. Arn said it's the most important title next to the world title, but TV title is viewed more weekly than any face on earth. And he goes, that applies to me. I like to be on TV, express views and talent, Arn asked David Crockett who has the best one-loss record on the Superstation. Dave says there are several. Arn says I'm up there with them. Says when's the last time Dusty Rhodes came out and beat anybody? So that was very funny. He goes, it's a long time. Then they show a video of Arn stealing the belt from Dusty as Arn talks, which is one of our all-time favorite segments. And he's talking about having the best one-loss record. It says right here, I just walked out and I took it from Dusty. If he's a man and felt it belonged to him, why wouldn't he get it back? David Crockett starts giving him shit about him and totally stealing the belt. Says Dusty Rhodes just standing there and I took it, Arn says. David Crockett says, we just saw in the video, Arn says, I'm just more than man and he is. Talent, public opinion, express fact that I had TV title. Possession is 99% of the law. He says, let's show Arn doing matches he considers TV title defenses. Arn says he asks guys in these matches whose TV champ is. He shows his patented move, which is the Gourd Buster, which is officially named now. Arn says as soon as he gets here, the title he's worked so hard for, he earned. And then again, he just goes in talking about how great he is as TV champion. And then we get a scene where in Mid-Atlantic where Dusty Rhodes actually attacks Arn and steals the belt back. And in the long run, what happened is Dusty gave the belt over to Jim Crockett, back to Jim Crockett. And then Arn starts talking about Dusty Rhodes. It was his back, eye to eye. He yells at Tony to get his smirk off his face as Tony's laughing at him because Dusty took his TV title back. Arn says he never attacked any man from behind. He always looked eye to eye, and I say what I want. I am TV champion, and I want my trophy back. Remember that, Dusty Rhodes. So Crockett then comes out to end the show, and Jim Crockett has the TV title front and center. Like I said, as Dusty has brought it back to him after it taken from Arn, and Jim Crockett basically says we're going to start 1986 with a tournament. So we have first Starrcade 85, changing course of the decade. But on January 4th in Greensboro, we will have a one-night tournament for the TV title, and then they show moments from the Bash match where Tully and Dusty face for the TV title. So that closes us out. So now we know that we have the Road Warriors versus the Russians coming up starting in December. We'll see more what happens after Starrcade, and now we know that the TV title will be decided in a one-night tournament on January the 4th. So, to close this out, let me go to Dr. G. What do you think of this segment with Arn and the TV title tournament?
Love it. Love the whole thing. And, you knew eventually that, Dusty was going to get the belt back. And, and then he gave it over to Crockett. And now we're going to have a TV title tournament, which, now kind of, they were able to go on with this feud, this plot for a little while, because that's what I like about it. They didn't rush it, like Arn was saying he was the television champion, even though, he never really won the championship, he stole it. They were able to draw that out over a couple of months, but now it's time. Okay, now we're going to have a tournament. Now we're turning the book, the page on the year. And now here we go. We're going to start with something fresh. We see, like you said, this show really set up two good feuds. Well, you have the TV title tournament that's being set up, and then you have the Russians and the Road Warriors. So this is again just good booking. Everything stays consistent, and you see how everything just you don't really see too many hiccups. Everything kind of flows along nice from week to week. It's amazing because they were doing so many different shows, so many syndicated shows at the time, but they were able to keep all the storylines all together, which isn't an easy thing to do. And they did a good job at it at this time. So I was glad you put this on here because it kind of sets us up for what we're looking for after Starrcade.
Yeah, we get two kind of sneak peeks before we even talked about Starrcade, so I thought it was kind of cool. Callum, what'd you think?
My first note is Arn Anderson out here looking like the optimal male. And when I grow up, I want to be 1985 Arn Anderson.
I still dream about the fedora.
What a hero! Honestly, see if he wore a fedora in this one, he would look like a proper gangster, like somebody you would not want to mess with, because it's just unbelievable again. Unbelievable stuff again. I love the fact that he's walking around as if he has been TV champion, and the matches he's been having on Worldwide and Mid Atlantic were actual TV title defences. I thought that was wonderful because of, as he says, possession is 9/10 of the law. Also he's justified. As I couldn't quite think of the word there. He's justified in what he says again, which all the best heels are, as we always say. Because for weeks he was saying if Dusty Rhodes wants his belt back, all he needs to do is come and face me and come and get it. And as much as it wasn't as straightforward as Arn Anderson walking up to him and taking it whilst looking him in the eye. He did do it face to face, and then when Dusty wants his belt back, he does it from behind and hits him with a chair. So he's completely justified in what he's saying. But once more, I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but I fucking love Arn Anderson.
Yeah, he is awesome. I also like that he's shitting on Dusty, hitting him from behind, where like Arn's done it 100 million times before, but he claims he never does it. That's really great too. Rory, what'd you think? Close us out.
Yeah, close us out is right. Not enough Arn Anderson on this edition, I don't think. So it's only right and proper that we get to talk about him last year. Just another golden promo from the great man. Delusional, as has just been mentioned, but focused and believable all the same. Yeah, he is the champion. He's got the belt. That's good enough for me. And he's Arn effing Anderson, and don't you forget it. Yeah, great way to finish up here with just a few words from the great man.
Yep. So guys, that closes us out of November '85. So again, I can't say. I mean, this has been a fantastic month leading into Starrcade with matches I didn't even know existed. In March, we go right to Starrcade '85 for next month. But before we get there, we're going to do our show end rewards. So let's start off with best match. We had a lot of really, really good matches on here. Before I give my thoughts, I'm going to go around the horn first. So, Rory, what was your best match?
Yeah, I think, although I said at the time it was probably more Angle, I still gave it the same as one or two other matches, but I am going to go for Flair Dibiase. What it came to represent was the greatest of all the matches we've seen over the last couple of weeks. So, Flair Dibiase is my call for best match, yeah.
Okay, Colin, what do you think? Best match? You're on mute. All right.
Sorry.
Good.
Of course I'm on mute. I was saying that this is the toughest best match we've had so far. I think I had 2 3 1/4, 2 3s, and a 2 3/4. I have gone with Flair Dibiase. Because I just thought it came out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting it, but it was excellent. But honourable mention for me goes to Koko versus Flair as well.
And that's fair. Dr. G, what did you think? Best match?
Because I rated it the highest, and that's the one. Again, the whole package. I went with Flair Dibiase as well. Again, it was one of those gems that came out of nowhere, and great choice by yourself on that one, because you pulled one out there that I wasn't even expecting, and just the whole storyline behind it and the way they set it all up on the show with the match, just really good stuff. So that's my choice.
Right. I also went Flair Dibiase. This was so hard. I don't think I've ever had a harder decision to make on best match because it's pretty cut and dry, but I also went with Flair and Dibiase. Just total package-wise, one of the greatest things we've ever watched on this show. So, worst match, I don't really think I need to go around the horn. Is it a unanimous Graham versus Abdullah?
No doubt.
Already said enough about that one.
Yeah, that was an abomination.
All right, so we're 2 for 2 on unanimous. Best promo, is it safe to say unanimous there, too, with the hard times?
On we go. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so the David Crockett stroke out. Here's my problem. I love that she likes it, but goddamn, the look at hims kind of took me aback. But I'm still gonna go with the TA kissing baby doll moment. But man, that freaking look at him is a close second. So the next one, Callum, which one did you have as best Crockett moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to be She Likes It, She Likes It.
All right. G?
Same here.
All right, Rory?
Whoa. Yeah, she likes it. She likes it.
All right. All right. So we're 3 for 3. So here's where it gets even more tricky. Best angle. So the last episode, the TA Tully stuff was absolutely magnificent. And then we had the formation of the Horsemen, but the Dibiase thing came out of nowhere, and I'm torn. I'm going to have to give it a tie between the Dibiase angle and the TA Tully stuff. I'm going to cop out and make it a tie. So, Dr. G, what did you have there on best angle?
I'm gonna go with the. Oh gosh, this is a tough one.
That's why I copped out.
I'm gonna have to go with the Dibiase Flair because I just love the way they set the whole thing up and everything that you included for us to watch. I just thought was really, really well done. The TA Tully stuff is awesome, and it really is, and it's just that feud is just phenomenal. But we've kind of chosen a lot with that, so I just thought it was a chance to do this. I really also enjoyed, just as an honorable mention, I enjoyed the face off with the the Warriors,
yes.
TA, Dusty and the Horsemen. So it was definitely a tough choice, but I really, really enjoyed. I guess that Dibiase Flair stuff, you really just struck a chord with me. So I'm gonna go with that. I'm comfortable with saying that.
Well, like I said, I'm comfortable with both. So, Rory, what did you think? Best thing?
Yeah, I've given the Flair Dibiase stuff as part of the best match, the love it deserves. So, and we obviously haven't spoken about it on this show, so I'm going to give it to the Magnum Tully build-up. Last week I said how amazing Tully is, how superbly Magnum played his part as well, how they got to the stage now where the only possible sort of match they can have is something that the NWA don't even really want to sanction, that Crockett had to go over their heads in order to put on, and everybody is now baying to see it. Kudos to everybody involved. I've got to go for that as our best angle.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say this month of November we got the two best, probably 20 to 30 minutes of TV on two separate TV shows we've seen so far. Just incredible moments. So, Callum, what'd you think? Best angle?
I mean, it's never a bad thing when you've got three best angles to pick from, because I didn't even consider the face-off with the Horsemen and America's Team of the Road Warriors, but that was that gave me chills watching that, because I was just like, right, okay, let's just go, let's just have this match right now. But I've gone with Ted DiBiase from Mid-South as well, because it was one of these ones, it was maybe 45 minutes on the network, and all but 5 of it was dedicated to this, and it didn't seem like things seemed 40 minutes. Like Ric Flair Wahoo felt every single minute of 48 minutes. This felt like it went by in a heartbeat. So that's my choice.
All right. So our last award of the night is the Fashion Award. So I was torn between the Baby Doll Tully fedora and jacket from last episode, but I'm choosing Ric Flair from going from a robe to a T-shirt to a suit all in one episode from 11/16. So I'm picking Flair. Rory, how about you?
Yeah, it's got to be the Flair costume change. He's been a very busy boy this month, and I do mean November 1985, not February 2021. Just the date exactly when we're recording this show. But yeah,
big reveals during our show tonight that on Monday Night Raw. But anyway, all right, Callum, fashion.
Again, another tough one. Honourable mention goes to Ric Flair wearing the robe, where it looks as if it could be the only thing that he is wearing. And the visual of him just walking on the plane from Oklahoma City or wherever he was for Mid-South the night before to Atlanta wearing just the robe is making me chuckle. But I've got to go with Tully's fedora, maroon velour jacket and baby doll snakeskin attire. It was just excellent.
It's a tough call. It's so tough. Dr. G, what about you?
I went with the Flair stuff because, especially, like I said, that probably actually came with the robe on to the studio that morning, but just the different changes. I love that. I mean, obviously the Tully with the fedora and baby doll, that stuff is great as well. And my honorable mention between that is I loved Arn at the end there with all the jewelry. It was kind of a different look for him. He looked like a mobster. He really did. He just the way with the black shirt and the pinky ring, and I don't know. I marked out for that a little bit, but I had to go with Flair this time around. But it was very tough because to me there was three. The Tully and Flair and then Arn. But I think Flair just squeaked it out.
Yeah. So, again, great stuff, great awards, great matches, great angles. We are now up to Starrcade 85, but we have one more pit stop on the way in 2 weeks. Again, I'm not going to announce the guest yet, but because I want to make sure that it's 100% concrete because I don't want to jinx ourselves. But if we do get this guest, it is a guest that is a prominent member of a match from Starrcade 85 that we will be talking to. So please come back in 2 weeks, and hopefully we'll have that guest on there. And then a month from now, we will talk Starrcade 85. So kind of like a season finale, I feel like we've been building to this moment, and it's pretty freaking exciting. So before we jump off, I would like to say a special thank you to Rory McNamara. You have been a fantastic guest here in November 85, and I'm really glad we got some really key pivotal moments for you to be able to talk about. So pretty big deal. So we're definitely going to have you back in the future. So I just want to say thank you personally. And with that, I'm going to ask you, what would you like to plug?
Lots going on. First off, yes, thank you so much for having me on these shows. It would have been a privilege to be on any of the ones you've done so far. But to be on such an important pivotal month with some of the greatest moments in pro wrestling history, let's not make any bones about it, I'm deeply honored to be on with you guys. You do a brilliant job every couple of weeks, and just to be any small part of it means a lot to me. Just to talk about this stuff for 5 hours, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity, and I was glad to come back in a heartbeat. So keep me there in the hopper. Until then, though, I do indeed have plenty going on, as I've said, here on the Place to Be Nation, along with Callum and Ben Locke. We got our Special Relations show, where every month we just talk about, random stuff, really. Bit of retro, bit of modern. We've actually got a proper stretch project. We'll see how long that lasts, preparation and all of that. Not normally our strongest suit on that show, but we'll see how we go. Always a great time, so do listen in for that. Also, the show Senior Video, where every month I take a look at a home video classics offering from the WWE Network and give it a bit of a review. Recording the latest edition of that next week as we do this show. And Sean Kidd may or may not be involved in the not too distant future. Spoiler, he will be. He's on the next show. So there you go. Kill the suspense straight away. Yeah, Sean Kidd will be joining me to talk about, let's mention it, the Heart Foundation VHS. So really looking forward to breaking that down with Sean.
Can't wait. Love the Heart Foundation. Yeah.
I watched that one yesterday, and that's a great tape. Really looking forward to discussing that. And also outside of the realm of Place to Be Nation, the Wrestling 20 Years Ago podcast, which, as the name suggests, looks at pro wrestling from 20 years ago. All three major promotions, although as we are now in February 2001, there's very little of two of those three promotions to go. In March 2001 is going to be a monumentally huge month for us. We've got some special programming talking about the demise of ECW and WCW. And of course, we've got another Sean favourite, the small matter of WrestleMania 17 to review coming up in a few weeks. So do listen into that.
I will listen to that because I respect your commentary, not for the matches.
You're going to be hateless, or you're just going to skip ahead to the marks out of 10 at the end and then send your missions my way.
There's a few matches on there I like, so I'll skip ahead to a couple of those. So.
Let's not go crazy here. A few matches you like. Cool. I'll sit down now.
Anyway, good stuff from Rory. So make sure you go and listen to all the pods he's on. He does an awesome job on all the shows. Callum, how about you? What do you got to plug?
Well, in addition to the aforementioned Special Relations podcast, I've obviously got this. I will be making an appearance on Trivia Night. By the time you've heard this, I will have been on the Friends episode. I don't know. We've not recorded it yet. I don't know how I've done, so I'm not going to set myself up for a fall by saying I'm an expert and then falling at the first hurdle and being out before the final round, as is probably likely. Given having heard some of the questions on the Disney one, where I failed miserably. Also, if you please follow the Place to Be Nation YouTube and Twitch pages, please. By the time you've heard this, again, we'll have done the Elimination Chamber live watch, I believe, if my dates are correct. All these shows are rolling into one modern day just now. It could be Elimination Chamber on Sunday, it could be WrestleMania. I really don't know. So please give us a listen on a follow on that. At least every month we will be doing the pay-per-view live watch, and I try to stream as much as I can. On YouTube, you'll get the best bits, or I'm going to start putting the best bits from previous episodes from the Quad of Pods and from the Twitch live streams. The first one went live, an all-timer went live with Jenny's response to Natalia coming out at the Royal
It has
Rumble.
an all-time response from you to me about a Drew McIntyre comment I make. There's some those Twitch streams have some all-time hidden gem moments.
They do, and it's basically what you hear on all the pods between us all, but live watching stuff, and sometimes even the stuff that we're watching becomes secondary. But so please give us a follow on that and on YouTube as well, so you'll get the best bits from everything there.
All right, sounds great. And Dr. G, how about you? What do you got?
Well, first I want to thank Rory for coming on the show. He did an excellent job. We enjoyed having you and your perspective. It's nice when you get we see the different fourth horsemen that comes on every month, and just getting their perspective on what we're doing, and it adds so much to the show. So thank you for coming on. And for me, we got the NWA Saturday special. I am doing the show with the Podfather Scott Criscolo, and we right now, because the current NWA is not really doing much, so we're kind of doing our GWCW ballot. We came up with the matches together, but Scott numbered them, so we'll see when we get a little closer to the top there, see how we probably will disagree on some of the.
He needs more Rick Steamboat in his picks, apparently.
Well, yeah, you know him with the Rick Steamboat. Now, listen, I just agree with you on the fact that it's not the number one match in WWF. He and Savage, even though I love Savage, but Ricky Steamboat definitely had some good matches along the way. So we got that every week, every Saturday it drops, and then I'll be recording the Year in Pop next week, 1988. I'm not sure when that will be on the Pop Experience when it'll actually be released, but I know we're recording it next week, so stay tuned for that. You could follow me on Twitter at DrGPTV, and you know what? Listen, I can't wait to get to next month because we're gonna have a lot of fun.
Yeah, next month's going to be awesome. So as for me, you can get me on Twitter at NWA Crock Roll. I will also pimp Highway to the Impact Zone column. I believe you will be joining us for Victory Road 2004, correct?
Yes, I shall be. I was remiss in forgetting that I was doing that, yes.
It's not. It's well. We'll see how forgetful the show is, but we're very happy to have you on. We haven't had guests on the show, so you'll be our first. So look forward to talking with you on that. Obviously, we also have Chicken Salad. The latest one we just dropped was No Way Out 2003, and the next one coming up will be WrestleMania 9. So stay tuned for that one. I believe we'll be doing another one in a month as well. We'll be doing WrestleMania 27, so we'll be doing 2 WrestleManias next month. And then my new podcast, which I am very happy with, kind of goes back to my childhood. I am doing a podcast with Scott Shiflett. It is called Battlestar in the 25th Century, where we go back and live watch Battlestar Galactica and Buck Rogers from 1978. Scott has never seen the show whatsoever, so it's culture shock to him. Why, for me, it's a pure joy in reliving my childhood. So first episode dropped last week, so please go check that out as well. So for Dr. G, for Colin McDougall, and our guest Rory McNamara, I am Sean Kidd. Thank you for listening, and let's be back here in 2 weeks where hopefully we'll have our very special guest, and then 4 weeks from now we will talk Starrcade 85. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.